Hey, everybody. Hi. Welcome to the Jeff Gerstmann Show. I'm your host for this week, Jeff Gerstmann, and it is January 10th, 2023, and we're hanging out, and it's very wet. It's extremely wet. Sorry, hang on. It's extremely wet. It's very...
What fun.
It's so wet. It's very damp out here. We are in the middle of a flood watch for the next, I guess, 36 hours. They extended it. It was originally going to end at noon today. I don't know why. I assume that means it's going to be raining in more places in my immediate area, but the rain here has currently stopped. Looking at my window, live weather watch here. It doesn't look like it's raining. Back to you. But it is supposed to rain for the next 2 hours, and then that's going to be it for the next 1, 2, 3, 4 days. But we are still in a flood watch until tomorrow night. It's here it's fine. It rained. I don't know about the rest of this town or the immediate areas. I haven't been out much. But here there has not been much. A little bit of water seeped under the garage door into the garage, which is just the wind blowing it under there, and my constant my constant pain that is the idea that no homes around here have rain gutters means that the sides of my house, the sides that the rain just falls off the roof on both ends, those two sides are flooded. There's let's call it, I don't know, 4 inches of water, 3 inches of water just sitting out there. So now that the rain is stopping, I'm probably going to get out there after the show with my shop vac and vacuum up some water. I don't know what to do here. But of course, other parts of the state, it's something like 20 trillion, some number of the trillions. I thought I heard 20. I don't know. Some insane amount of water dropping on the state over this last couple of days here, and it's bad. It's bad. You see a lot of pictures of this bridge got washed out, or hey, this mudslide blocked this road, or all these trees fell down because of the wind, or here's shots of a freeway and you can't drive on this freeway anymore because it's underwater, or here's a car that is almost completely underwater, and it's a bad cycle to be on, because here's a zillion trillion gallons of rain that drop in a way that make it impossible to help with the drought, and then some immediate sun so the problem I run into with this house is that it'll rain and then there'll be a weird hot day immediately afterwards, which is not happening this time. But normally you'll get here's 2 days of rain, and then it's 85 degrees. And so the rain will get into the wood around the window frames and all that, and then the sun will hit it and cause it all to swell up, and then you get things like, this window leaks now. So we had to caulk a window. We had to get a window caulk it up real nice. But that window needs to be full on replaced at this point. But it's anyway, it's bad. But right here it is not so bad. I did have to move some stuff in the garage. I had to move a box of books that I had pretty close to the garage door, because it was the bottom of that box was getting wet because water was kind of seeping under the door, which solves a mystery for me because my Fallout 4 Collector's Edition, was that the one that came with the helmet, this shitty helmet? was sitting on that floor last year, and well, I don't know. At some point, I picked it up over the last 12 months, and the bottom of it was like all gross. I was like, what happened? Why is this? This looks like it got wet. How could it possibly have gotten wet? It was 76. Okay, so Fallout 76. Okay, great. And so the bottom of that, the styrofoam, everything got all disgusting, and I was just very confused. As to how that could have happened. And now that I've seen that, when it rains really hard and the wind is blowing very hard, a little bit of water gets under this door, under this garage door. I was like, okay, now I totally understand. So anyway, at some point I took all that out of its box. All the contents were fine. And I should have just thrown the whole thing away, honestly. But I have an inability to do that, as you know. The garage would look way nicer if I was just like, I'll forget all this stuff. This is all trash. We need to throw all this away. This plastic Fallout 76 helmet, yes. And the little bag of army men that came with it, we can just throw all that away. We don't need any of that. No one needs any of that. But I don't know. The box of books I would not want to lose. I do have some books that are, pretty long out of print. Thankfully, not in the box of books, but on top of the box of books was my strategy guide for the game Brink. So if you want to know how to play Brink, don't worry. I've got you covered. In fact, just the bottom of that box got a little bit moist. It didn't. The box itself will be fine. And I'm planning on taking that box apart and getting all those books back onto shelves at some point here where they belong. I don't like having books boxed up. Feels wrong. But I have a lot of books. I have more books than I have space for a bookshelf. So we'll probably be selective on all that when the time comes. So yeah, I don't know. It's been a bizarre couple of days here where it's just like, all right, it's now this is the 2-day period when it rains a lot. I know up north where I used to live, it's been a lot more steady than that. They've had, I think, a week straight of rain, and there's more to come. And, so that's, still ongoing for some parts of the state, I think. But for us, I don't think it's going to rain again until Saturday, and we'll have another situation sort of like this where it rains hard for 2 days and then goes away again. But, yeah, so that's what I've been doing. I was out in the garage last night moving boxes to figure out where that water was coming from and where it was going and everything. I know, some whole towns have been evacuated. Areas are on, extreme evac watch, and I don't know. It just makes me think of when I was a kid and when we got flooded out of the house, which was, a formative moment when you're like 7, where, like, hey, a rowboat is rowing up to your front door and you're getting in the rowboat to evacuate from your house. It was pretty wild. It was, we had to get the hell out of there because there were, I guess, multiple feet of water eventually got into the house after that. We lived pretty close to the river, and the Petaluma River has since been dredged by, like, the Army Corps of Engineers, like, multiple times, which seems to be offsetting the part where Petaluma keeps liking to build on its floodplain. Because whatever. I'm glad I got the fuck out of there. That town is aggravating in so many different ways. But yeah, I don't know. Here we are. And it's weird to have it. It's weird to have it wet. It's weird to have it wet. So yeah, I don't know. That's the other thing is, like, moving to a new city. Like, I knew when it would rain a lot, I know where the signs are, like, if it's going to flood, it's going to flood here first. And I'm on this side of town that never floods. And so, I'm not, like, you kind of just know that stuff. And so there was a moment when it really started, when the emergency, like, loud notification on the phone came in last night, that kind of made it real in a way of like, oh shit, man. I was like, wait, we're going to be fine. But I like, do I need to worry? Do I need to worry about this? Like, no, right? I don't think so. But it was still a moment of just like, oh God, I don't know. I don't know enough about this town to know, like, where do I go to look at a river to see how close the river is to going over. There is one of those, Southern California, they're big on their fucking big cement, like culverts, big ditches. We've got some of those around here. I should probably go look at those, but like I said, the rain is mostly past. So, and then in the middle of that, the heater had trouble turning on last night. So I had a heart, like a moment of like, oh no, hey, that'd be bad if the heater then also stopped working in the middle of all this. But hey, it came on. Everything's fine. What if I built a moat? I kind of already have one. That's the we kind of have a moat on the sides of the house because the water just collects. You have like the house stops and then you got like a little like foot and a half of like, it's like, oh, you could put some flowers here, I guess. There's like a little bit of dirt before there's like a cement walkway or grass or whatever. And that whole area is just flooded completely. And it's dumb. I want to get rain gutters installed, but that seems crazy considering why. I don't know. This happens once a year. I think the last time it rained to this degree that I was like, oh shit, it was New Year's Eve. No, it was New Year's Day 2022. So, a year ago. And so, yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. It's wet. We'll be fine. But it's very wet. And yes, there's a lot of places in the state that are fucked right now to be in. So that's what's been going on with me. Wet 2 confirmed. Wet 2 coming out for Xbox One. And that's it. It's an Xbox One exclusive. It's not going to be forwards compatible. You cannot play Wet 2 on an Xbox Series X. They're like, nope. This is a exclusive experience just for the lucky Xbox One owners in the audience. Yeah, what if they're never gonna. We joke about Wet 2. We have been joking about Wet 2 for years, but like, there's no chance that's actually ever going to happen, right? Who developed? Oh, okay, so it got canceled. Wet 2 double feature was the name of a PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 game. Oh, this is A2M that was developing this. Did they make the first Wet? Okay, so they still exist, but it's unlikely that they would repartner with Bethesda at this point. Maybe we could put the lady from Wet, with Eliza Wet, is that her name? I'm guessing here. And maybe they could put her into I don't know, Starfield. Is that the put her in Redfall? I don't know. Ruby Malone is the name of the character in Wet. Oh gosh, this is so in late 2010 they announced Wet 2. This is a quote. Unseen 64 has the kind of collected the bits and pieces around this. So in conjunction with A2M changing their name to Behavior Interactive, and now they have found like vast success with by hiring Eric Pope. What is that? What is that game? What is that game? Death by Degree. No, what is the name of their thing? Dead by Daylight. Yeah. And then they have Meet Your Maker coming out, which actually I think looks really cool. Dead by Daylight, not my thing, but seems to be doing quite well for them. So that's it. The developers of Wet went on to make that. So there's a quote here. So this is in conjunction with the announcement of them changing their name from the embarrassing A2M, Artificial Mind and Movement, to Behavior. This is a quote from some interview saying the independent studio has revealed plans to continue the story of Ruby Malone. That's a good way to write that, of just like, oh yes, you mean Wet 2? The continuing adventures of Ruby Malone, a character name that everyone knows. No formats were discussed, but it's likely the sequel would follow the original release onto the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. When discussing the future of AAA productions from the studio in an interview with Develop Online, CEO Remy Racine stated, "I think the AAA market has become very difficult for independents. I'm not saying we're avoiding it. Of course we're making a AAA game with Wet 2, but it's a very difficult market. It's very difficult to be successful with those kinds of games." And there's a little bit of footage even of Wet 2 on YouTube as embedded by Unseen64. So there's nothing in here about why it got canceled, or some images and early HUD tests created for Wet 2 were found online by fans of the original game and are preserved in the gallery below. And blah, blah, blah. This also says that Behavior Interactive also worked on... Okay, it did Fallout Shelter, but this also says that they worked on Star Citizen. Were they like a shadow developer on Star Citizen? Man. That's crazy. I remember going to London to see Wet. I remember Bethesda had an event in London, and I went there to see whatever. There was a batch of games that they were putting out around the same time that they were not developing. They were like, we're going to become a publisher, and so we're publishing this game from A2M. And whatever the other... Rogue Warrior was one of the other ones. Bangers. They chose some fucking bangers. No wonder they didn't stick with that plan. After Wet and after Rogue Warrior, they're like, fuck it, we're out. We're going to publish Todd's games and fuck everything. We're done. We're done. Oh. Speaking of video games, we played some more Melatonin last week, and it just led to me playing a bunch of that video is up on YouTube. That just led to me playing a bunch of Rhythm Tengoku, the first Rhythm Heaven game that wasn't released in the US, the Game Boy Advance Rhythm Heaven game. Because Melatonin is ostensibly it has the bits and pieces of Rhythm Heaven. Like, you can tell that they wanted to make a game that was like Rhythm Heaven, and they did, but they went with a more cohesive art style that fits to their thing, and they changed a bunch of stuff, or they made it their own, I guess. But as a part of making it their own, I think they lost a lot of the flavor and the frantic fun that makes Rhythm Heaven great. And playing the two games back to back kind of illustrate, like, oh right, the way the levels, the visuals illustrate the rhythm is done very differently between the two games, in a way that the action in Rhythm Heaven feels very playful, and it is very obvious most times what you're doing and what you're trying to do. Whereas I think, the action in Melatonin, I just found to be very like you're hitting A and you're hitting buttons in both games. It's not like it's like, a fighting game, but like the music, the way you interact with it, the visuals as you're interacting with it, all just felt like they didn't go far enough, I guess I would say. And so it's cool that someone, that the team decided to kind of make a Rhythm Heaven-esque game. I think there are not enough of those. There should be more. But upon playing the two of them back to back, I was like, man, Rhythm Heaven is the best. Oh, you shouldn't try to make another one of those, because you'll fail, because this one's so good. I don't know. And then there's another game called Rhythm Doctor out that someone recommended, and I installed that and messed around a little bit, and I need to spend a little bit more time with Rhythm Doctor. It seems like a game where you are pushing a button to, like, in rhythm to the music, because you are trying to resuscitate a person. And yeah, I don't know. That one kind of left me a little cold off the bat. But yeah, there's Bits and Bops, this other game that is, I don't know if they have a demo or whatever the deal is, but that one looks to be another game in that similar vein. So we'll see how that all shakes out. But in the meantime, if you have the means, I would say go play a Rhythm Heaven game. We're at the start of a year. Maybe you're like, I'm kind of between games and I don't know that I want to necessarily tackle anything big, and people are always talking about their backlog, but what if instead of playing current games, you went back and played an amazing, slightly older game in one of the Rhythm Heaven games? They're all good. I like that GBA game. But also the DS, like the touchscreen, like the flicking the coin thing in the DS game, I thought was so good too. Like, oh man, those games are so good. The Rhythm Heaven franchise is one of the greatest franchises in gaming. That's it. I said it. It's not wet. It's not wet too. Maybe, yeah, could they put Ruby Malone into Ruby Malone? That's terrible. I need to forget that. I need to forget that name, or lest it stick with me for the rest of my days. Like the last thing I want to have at like the tip of my tongue is the name of the lady from Wet. But maybe they could put her into Death by Daylight. That'd be. It's Ruby with an I. I see people in chat misspelling it, and please, it's Ruby with an I. Come on. I've also, so we played some Melatonin. I have been continuing to play Call of Duty. I don't have much new to say about that other than that I hit the level cap. I am now level 250, which is not, I know a lot of people have hit that much faster than I did. But I have been playing a ton of that and hit the max level, and I have been leveling up a lot of the guns, and I've got a lot of gold camos, and I'm still having a fantastic time with that game. I don't know. I've played a little bit of Warzone here and there, but I've mostly been sticking with the kind of regular ass, competitive ass multiplayer. I think it needs more maps. That is going to be my number one criticism of games. I feel like this would be good if it had like 9 more maps, because it needs more maps. There was one more map in the beta that didn't make it into the final game. That museum map. I don't know if you remember that, but I never tracked down anything that sounded like it was official, but it did not appear in the game, and then people realized like it looks just like the Getty Museum. Like alarmingly so, in a way that maybe they had to pull it for reasons of it looked just like the Getty Museum. I know they had trouble with that hotel map where a hotel was like, that just looks like our hotel, but that's still in the game. And they had a different name on the hotel, so it's probably fine. Who owns a building's likeness? How does that work? I don't know. People in chat are saying they liked that museum map. I was not immediately. I mean, it's very different from a lot of Call of Duty maps, and it seems like there's just a lot of wide open space. And it had some neat things, some neat ideas. But I don't know. Like that map seemed okay. It was maybe not great. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I would take it. Fuck, man. I would probably say it would not be the worst map in the game if they were to put it in right now. And I tend to like all the maps in that game. But they need more. They need more, and they need them faster. Because it's just for as wide as that game is, if you don't engage with a lot of the different modes, and they're like, hey, over in DMZ we got building 20. I'm like, yeah, cool, man. If you could instead have those people cranking out more team deathmatch maps over here, that would be good too. So like that work is kind of lost on me a little bit. I haven't really been messing with DMZ much other than to get the gun. And we, on the Discord a few weeks ago now, we got in there and passed the gun around. And so everyone got the unlockable gun from DMZ mode, and then I don't think I have played it since. So yeah, I don't know. But it's I'm having a great time with it. I don't have much else to say of note other than I'm now looking forward to the next season of that game, I guess, because that's when they will raise the level cap again, and they will add, ideally a grip of new stuff. And we'll see how that goes. I know that they said the seasons are going to be 3 months. So is that, I don't know, do they have a season 2? I'm going to look this up here. if they have a season 2 start date yet. I know a bunch of the information has leaked. Okay, this seems to be February 1st seems to be the launch date of season 2. This is based on the countdown, the expiration of the current battle pass. So presumably that'll be around the time that happens. There's a castle map that is a reworked version of a map from World at War, 2008's Call of Duty game, and then it was in Vanguard last year, and now they're going to put it in this one too. That seems a little funky to just keep re-releasing. Well, I don't know. It worked for Nuketown, but I don't know. Castle is not Nuketown, so that's kind of frustrating. I don't know. More maps, more new maps. I would say also, like not just re-releasing. Like here's a samurai, here's a Japanese themed reskin of another map we did for a World War II game. Like, nah, man, nah. But anyway, I don't know. I'm still having a good time with it. I want to do the raid at some point. It has a raid in it now. I got a raid pass, but I have not done the raid. So maybe I'll try to put together a team for that. Maybe we can stream that one of these days. Also, I mean, so I've been spending a lot of time with the MSX, or a fake MSX, I guess I should say. This was the old ass computer that Microsoft was partially responsible for back in the 80s, and it was somewhat adjacent to the NES in a lot of ways, where, you know, Konami made a lot of games on it, and some of them are very faithful to, you know, those NES versions of the games, and some of them are wildly different. There's a weird Castlevania. Contra is insane. Like a weird, it doesn't scroll, so it's just like single screen Contra, and you're walking off the edge all the time. And so I have been spending a lot of time with the MSX core on the Mister. There's a new version of the MSX core that someone is working on to replace the existing one, which is a little funky in the way that you kind of load games into it. And so I've just been always fascinated by a lot of those computers and devices that I just never had any exposure to. When they were new, and I've never owned an MSX. I don't know that I've ever even seen an MSX in person, except for like under glass or something. But the current version, the new version of the MSX core is very much in the works, but it does play MSX2 games now in a unstable build that you can find a build of it that does that. Not going to go into all the details here, but if you need to know, let me know, and I'll point you. It's on the Discord. It's on the Mr. Discord. Anyway, and yeah, there's just like so many weird bad games. Like Super Rambo Special is one of the ones that jumps out at me. That's like, it's vaguely Metal Gear-esque in a weird way, where the guards are walking paths and you've got a, you know, knife by default, and you can just run up and try to stick the guards without them seeing you. And there's just a wide variety of stuff on that platform that I just haven't really had time to, that I've never really been able to dive into, and so I'm taking some time and just messing with the MSX and just like seeing like what the hell is happening on here, what the heck is going on, and I feel that way about a lot of different computers, and you know, sometimes that stuff is like it always feels like it's on the verge of getting lost to time. Or like the simple act of having an emulator is often not enough, because it's like, oh, okay, I can load up this emulator and I can insert a floppy disk into a fake disk drive, but what do I type in to make the game go? What does the keyboard look like on this platform compared to a modern Windows keyboard? Because it's a Japanese computer, because it's this, because it's that. There's so many different little bits and pieces of old computing that always just feel like they're on the verge of getting lost. There's a documentation gap, I guess I would say. And the Mister has like a help button that you know, if someone has generated a PDF or a text file or something like that, you could write a thing that says like, hey, all right, if you're trying to load Commodore 64 games, this is what you push. This is what you type in to make a game load. And that stuff has been very useful. A lot of games will just boot if the floppy's in the drive when the computer boots up. And so I had to do a thing. I was doing a thing yesterday. I mean, I guess I'll have to spoil it here, but like I haven't recorded it yet, but the next game in the Jeff Gerstmann Hall of Fame is going to be Load Runner. And so I had to spend a bunch of time playing, trying to figure out some stuff on Load Runner. Load Runner, also, in addition to being a badass game with their own levels and everything, they also have a level editor in it. And you can save those levels to another floppy disk. So you take the game disk out, you put a blank disk in, and you can save your levels to that disk. But the act of doing that on an emulator, you're like, okay, wait a minute. Now I need to do that, but also I need to create an image that is a blank disk that I can put into the emulator. I need to make sure that that the emulator can write to that disk, because normally they can't, because you don't want to write to your images and fuck them all up. And so, it was just like jumping through a bunch of hoops that was like, if I hadn't done this for a very long time in, I don't know, 1984 or something like that, I don't think I would stand a chance to figuring it out now. But instead it was like, okay, well, what are the things that are preventing this from happening? I know what this error message means. I can figure this out and eventually work my way through it. But that's not an uncommon thing when it comes to emulating computers. There are some cases where you're like, I need to figure out a way to make a blank hard drive, but a fake blank hard drive that I can then attach to this emulator and then format it like it was a real hard drive so I can put DOS on, like whatever it is. There's just a lot of weird stuff you get into that exists between you and the games in a lot of cases. And, some emulators have taken a path of like, oh, well, we're going to be less accurate to the original experience and thus make it easier to load games and do that sort of stuff. And that's what the original version of that MSX core does, is it has you attach a fake hard drive to a fake MSX, and then, but in a lot of cases you're like, well, I don't have a fake hard drive. I've got all these individual images of floppy disks and cartridges that I want to try. And it's like, oh, well, it doesn't support that. Well, this new one does. So anyway, there's just so many weird hoops you jump through on that stuff. And it is fun to figure some of it out, but I understand why people would just completely fucking bounce off it and just be like, I don't know any of this. I can't even fathom how any of this works, because modern computers are so not like that. Generally speaking, I mean, you can get that deep and weird if you need to, but like for the most part, no one has to think about that shit ever. You throw a hard drive in there, you put Windows on a USB stick, you put it in there, and it goes. And you're like, all right, cool. Or most people just buy a computer that has Windows on it already, and they never think about it again. And then when it breaks, they go, I need to have someone come in here and fix this. So, I don't know. I've been messing with that a lot. and having a really good time with it. The MSX is a strange machine that, again, like it just is, it exists in this weird blind spot of like, there are some games that are pretty accurate ports. Like sometimes the sound is exactly like the NES, and you go, oh man, the Konami drums on the MSX, that's really wild. And sometimes they're dramatically different in totally busted ways that are like kind of fun to look at too. So I've just been having a great time dicking around with that stuff. And I don't know, maybe I don't know what the end goal is there. Like I kind of want to put together a list of fascinating MSX games and then stream it in a more kind of regimented fashion or something. But I don't know. That's just, I'm fucking around with it in my downtime. In my downtime at night when I can't type, but I can use a controller because I've got a sleeping baby boy in the room. I'm like, oh, time for some more MSX games. Why don't we take a break? We'll come back. We'll get into the news. A lot happened. There's actually like a decent amount of news this week for the first time this year. So let's take that break. We'll come back. We'll news it up. Breakfast cereal. It's not just a meal. It's a way of life. You know what I'm talking about. You get down and, hang out and maybe watch some TV. I ate a bowl of breakfast cereal standing in my kitchen this morning. Well, my daughter did the same. My daughter likes the cereal. I can't. It's too. Chocolate in the morning is not for me. She can't get enough of that. But it's just like I don't want that much sugar in the morning. That's why I turned to the alternative. There's Magic Spoon. Magic Spoon is out there making cereals that taste like the cereals you love from your youth, but making them, a little better for you. Like, okay, each serving contains 0 grams of sugar. They got 13 or 14 grams of protein and 4 or 5 net grams of carbs. That's a lot more than your typical off-the-shelf cereal. It's a keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, and soy-free way to relive those moments while doing whatever you're doing. What are you trying to do the Saturday morning cartoon thing? We were watching episodes of Richie Rich over here. That is aged poorly. That cartoon from 1982. Now you look at that rich kid and you're like, this is too much. This opulence. It's ridiculous. What are we doing? There's something wrong here. Magic Spoon is only 140 calories a serving, and it's like there's magic in every spoonful. They have over 8 unique flavors, and by that I think I'm counting 9 here. You won't get bored of feeling good with Magic Spoon. They got a wide variety here. Peanut butter, it's a hit around the house, but also there's cocoa, fruity, frosted, blueberry muffin, maple waffle, honey nut, cookies and cream, and cinnamon roll. There you go. Yeah. You're sure to find something that you love in that batch of flavors, something that matches the cereal that you're chasing after. But again, 13 or 14 grams of protein, only 4 or 5 net grams of carbs. That's going to be a better way to handle your morning meal than some of that off the shelf stuff. But hey, I don't want to pigeonhole you. If you are, as I have been known to do, if you are housing an entire box of cereal at 3 a.m, Magic Spoon is a better way to go with that. That is, I have done exactly that. That is not on their recommended or that is not you do you. But they're talking about things in terms of per serving. An entire box is not one serving, but sometimes things happen. Now what's going to happen? You're going to head to magicspoon.com/Jeff to get a custom bundle of cereal and try the magic for yourself. Be sure to use the promo code Jeff at checkout to save $5 off your order. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you ain't happy, if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, get your next delicious bowl of guilt-free cereal at magicspoon.com/Jeff. And use the code Jeff to save $5 off. And thanks to Magic Spoon for sponsoring the episode. All right, we're back, and now here's the news. Let It Die Deathverse, the follow-up to the hit game Let It Die. It was Let It Die, a hit game. I liked it. Maybe not a hit game, but Let It Die was a cool game. I think it is still probably a cool game. It probably continues to exist. Let It Die, a Deathverse : Let It Die, is a follow-up of sorts that I found captures none of the visual flair or style or flavor of that previous game, and is just kind of a battle royale, melee-focused battle royale game with a variety of weapons, but it is not just the Let It Die gameplay adapted into a battle royale. I don't believe Suda is involved in it at all, and there's just not a visual flair to it that I just don't think it stands out visually. From a gameplay perspective, I was only able to match into I think 1 or 2 games, and did not find it to be an especially rewarding experience. And then I tried to stream it and could not find any players to match up with, and was like, okay, well, that game's going nowhere. And it is going somewhere. It is going away. This is according to Eurogamer. The team, yes, so Super Trick Games is saying that they are going to temporarily suspend the game due to ongoing challenges, and saying that the game has been plagued with issues concerning in-game matchmaking and lag, but they're not shutting it down. They are going to, the term they're using is redevelop it while it is offline. This was a difficult decision for us to make. However, we believe that re-releasing the game with significant improvements will allow it to be enjoyed by a wider audience as well as our current players. Considering how much time goes into developing a game and that there's a finite number of games one can possibly make in a lifetime, it's impossible to say at this stage whether this is the right choice. But we love this game and are proud to have developed it together as a team. Therefore, we believe this is the best possible decision at this time. We will be doing our utmost to prepare for the re-release so that our current community can enjoy the game alongside many more new players in the future. That's fucking crazy. And that's a good way to look at it, I think, where they're just like, hey man, I can only make so many games before I'm dead. Is this the one I wanted? Like, no, we believe in this game. Like, if they truly believe in this game and they want to see it through, good on them, man. You know, like I can't fault that too much. Will they find success on the other side of it? I don't know. I don't know what they, like how much work do they intend to do to it? Because I feel like, if you fix the matchmaking and the lag, then, which I don't know that I experienced lag per se, but, if you fix those issues, then that's great. I don't think that's going to make this into a viable commercial product. Like it just seems like there's more that they would have to do. Also, this is not happening immediately. I thought this was going to be one of those things just like, hey, and we're pulling the plug tomorrow. But this is a very long ramp. Let's see here. Okay, so on January 5th, they made this announcement. The sales of death metal will end on February 7th. That is the premium currency in the game. And they will suspend service at 7 p.m. Pacific time on July 18th. So, 6 months. And they're still gonna release season 2's content as planned. However, new content for season 3 will only partially be released. I imagine that means that's just like, hey, this is the stuff that's done, and we're gonna put out the stuff that's done, and maybe this is like, okay, the servers will remain up, and we're gonna put out this shit we made, but we are full steam ahead on whatever the redevelopment of this game is, and so we're just gonna leave it up because why not? They are gonna stop the sales of the premium currency in a little under a month here. So it's not like they're going to be taking money the entire time, but it's weird. So, stock up on death metal now. It's, February 7th, no more death metal. You know the rules. So yeah, I was surprised to see this at all, but also the idea that they're telegraphing this move 6 months out. It makes me wonder if they're going to be like, hey, we've suspended service and it's back in August because they've spent the last 6 months working on whatever they're doing instead of trying to fix the game while it's in motion. It's that changing the tires on a car while it's going full speed on the fucking freeway is sometimes not that easy if they need to do a bunch of work to this thing. Yes, exactly. What they need to do is maybe just let it die. But at the same time, their statement about hey, we believe in this game and we want to see it through. Again, give it a shot. This seems like a real situation of the fucking deck is stacked against you. I feel like out of the gate when they're like, hey, we got a new battle royale out. That's already such a high bar. There are so many of those, and there are good melee focused battle royale games now. You got your Rumbleverse. People like Naraka Blade Point. I played some of that and it seems okay. There's other stuff out there in kind of a melee-ish vein. So it's not just Fortnite and Call of Duty and Apex, you know, there's like that end is kind of covered as well. And so like, what do you do to punch through, especially now that like the word on your game, if anyone has heard out of it to begin with, is like, not so great. Had trouble finding a match, but also when I did, the action was kind of dull. Like I don't know. Like it just makes me wonder. Yeah, they say they're gonna, you know, make significant improvements, but I it's hard to get a sense of like what that means because they have not given any real details beyond recognizing that there are problems with in-game matchmaking and lag. But yeah. We've made the decision to temporarily suspend the game services while we redevelop Deathverse Let It Die. I mean, it worked for Final Fantasy that one time. It worked once, so why not? But it's just a really bizarre situation. I do wish them the best of luck because that's a crazy thing to take on. And also, I really want to see how much they change. I want to see what they do to that thing. If they're like, oh, these whole systems were terrible, or hey, we think the visual style of this game was corny and bad, and so we've redesigned every character. You know, like I don't know what the. There were so many different things about that game that, like, if I'm looking at it through this lens of like you're gonna make changes, then I think about it in terms of like, hey, they should touch 100% of this game. Because none of it felt like amazing. It felt okay in situations, but also the flow of it, it was just like, all right, yeah, all right, you made a thing. It sure doesn't feel like Let It Die. It sure doesn't evoke the cool, weird awkwardness of Let It Die. And so I don't know what you do in that situation. And I don't know how long you have, right? Like, you know, again, if they're shutting the game down in July, do they plan to have it back in August or do they plan to have it back in December? You know, like, are they going to take a full year as much as they can to work on a new thing? Or are they like, oh, this is just more us abandoning the existing build of the game while we make dramatic changes that we don't want to roll in piecemeal. We want to roll out in a big, gigantic change. And so I don't know. That's a fucking weird one, man. Sony has said that they have over 10 different projects 10 different film and TV projects in the works. And Eurogamer has done a little thought about this, and Victoria Kennedy over there kind of said like, hey, you know, they put out a new trailer for the Gran Turismo movie, and also at CES stated that we have more than 10 projects in development and production between the film and television groups. And so they tried to piece together like what would those projects be, and there are 10 all kind of on the books already, which is crazy to think. Like I looking at this in front of me, I was like, oh man, I guess they did announce all this stuff. So what do we have? We have the Gran Turismo movie, the God of War TV show, the Horizon TV show, the Last of Us TV show, Uncharted, which again, that movie came out, but as Eurogamer's pointing out here, the company did previously say that this was a film franchise, so perhaps there's more Uncharted in our future. The Twisted Metal TV show, a Days Gone movie. I'm gonna click on that when we're done here. A Ghost of Tsushima movie, a Jak and Daxter movie, and a Gravity Rush movie. I'm now clicking on these because this is stuff that is apparently on the books, announced. Like, yes, this is something we intend to do. Okay, in August 2022, Deadline reported that that there is that Vendetta Productions is working on a Days Gone movie. That's really hilarious. And as Eurogamer points out, the deadline is saying that the movie will be a love ballad to motorcycle movies in a post-pandemic modern-day Western. Yeah, okay, I could see that. I could see, like, I don't think you need to attach it to this property because I don't think the Days Gone property gives you much of anything. It's zombies and motorcycles if you break it down, right? I mean, I'm sorry. Freakers and motorcycles. Yeah, Easy Rider with zombies. Sure, why not? I don't know. What is that? Deadline in also August of 2022, same day. Deadline reported that Japan studio is the Deadline reported that there's plans to adapt Gravity Rush into a movie. Director Anna Mastro and scriptwriter Emily Jerome attached. Which is okay. People like Gravity Rush. I did not care for the Gravity Rush games. I loved the visual style of them, but I found actually playing them to be not fun. So, but again, like, it's got a visual style, it's got a story to tell. Like, you could do that as a movie. I would see that almost working better as anime. Like, if you did a 13 episodes of that or something, like, you could adapt that world into something, but I don't know. As for Ghost of Tsushima, again, August of 2022, the director, Chad Stahelski, confirmed that his movie adaptation of Ghost of Tsushima will be a complete Japanese cast in Japanese. Sony is on board backing him on that, and that the quote here that he gave to Collider is, Western audiences in general are getting more and more used to reading subtitles. It's a fantasy period piece with reverence to Akira Kurosawa. Yeah, you think? It's a chance to push technology and people in a story that's timeless. It's character driven, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so I don't know. That sounds like the right way to do that movie. And then in February of 2022, Eurogamer reported on, so the director of the Uncharted movie, Ruben Fleischer, was speaking to Digital Trends while promoting Uncharted and said, I'm actually working on Jak and Daxter, a version of that for PlayStation, which I think would be really cool to bring to life. And Tom Holland at some point said that he would love to play Jak in a really weird and dark live action version of Jak and Daxter. I guess, man. Why not? Tom Holland as Jak. I don't that part I don't know so much about. And you can't start with Dark Jak. You got to start with lighthearted Jak to make Dark Jak make any sense. Maybe you could do that in the context of one film, but I don't. They should. What if instead, or in addition to, like, do whatever you want, right? Fuck it, I don't care. Go make 1 billion fucking movies out of your games. Like, get paid, like, fuck it, right? But like, they should make another Jak and Daxter video game. I think that might not be the worst idea in the world. I chose, you have to choose one, and I chose Ratchet and Clank over Jak and Daxter. You simply must choose one. You are either a Jak man or a Ratchet dude. And Ratchet and Clank is the superior franchise. 10 times out of 10. But they should make another Jak game. Especially if they intend to make a movie out of it, it might not be the worst idea to remind people. But but then you just re-release them, right? You just get someone out there like, hey, this is what Blue Point's been working on all this time, is a Jak and Daxter fucking remaster. No, but yes. Zealot Cool Kid in the chat has hit the nail on the head. He says we need a new Ape Escape. To be honest, yes, we do. If we're gonna make fucking 3D platformers in a classic vein, let's make a new Ape Escape. Can we get a new Ape Escape? Can we get a new Ape Escape? One of the, well, I was about to say one of the greatest franchises of all time, but that's maybe a bit of a stretch. Towards the end there, I was like, okay, they made another one of these, and but man, Ape Escape, awesome. Ape Escape 2, fan-fucking-tastic. That weird budget game where you use the vacuum cleaner to suck the pants off the monkeys that only came out in Japan, fucking gangbusters. Woo! Ape Escape 3, I could, it's cool that they made it. But yeah, so what other Sony franchises do you take and turn into film? Okay, so if they said over 10 and the Eurogamer was able to come up with 10 right off the bat, and then they go on to speculate a little bit and say like, well, what, and they say, hey, what about Bloodborne? Which I guess is technically a Sony IP. They also mentioned Returnal and Astro's Playroom, which I think is an interesting left field choice of like, yeah, you could make a Minions style movie with the Astro's Playroom robots. You could absolutely do that. Yeah, I don't know that I need that in my life, but sure, you could do that. What do we need? What's like another Sony franchise? Like, okay, Siphon Filter. There you go. Siphon Filter. A Siphon Filter film seems like the sort of thing that would that's like a direct to Amazon Prime kind of thing, right? There's an ad unit on your TV when you turn it on, and it just looks like the fucking Jack Ryan ad, but instead it says Gabe Logan Siphon Filter, like that's. But that's exactly what that is, right? So that maybe we don't. In my mind, Ben Affleck from 2004 is starring in that movie as Gabe Logan. They're putting Ben Affleck in it and then de-aging him to make him look like he looked in 02 or 04. And then maybe later than that. Maybe you get like 2 years before Argo came out. Maybe that's the Ben Affleck you're getting for a Siphon Filter. Boya says Resistance has so much potential for a film or series. Sure. Yeah, I the story of Resistance, I think, would be well adapted to a movie or film, probably a movie. Someone, I believe it came in the emails, I forget, but someone was like, man, they need to make a new Resistance. And I read that email and shook my head and said, no, they don't. No, they do not. I don't think any of the Resistance games were good. To the point where I forgot that they existed. They're okay, but they're not. I remember how much time they spent demoing those games before they came out and trying to position them and like, look at the new Resistance. And like, I just never thought those games had like fun level design or like that. It was like they sat down and said, well, what are we good at? Weird weapons. That's what we're known for, making weird fucking weapons. I'm like, okay. Let's put those into this first person shooter. Okay, here's a bunch of weird fucking weapons. And I just, it doesn't, yeah, never really did anything for me. That conflict, those weapons, they were goofy in some ways, but like that never lined up well. I think Killzone, you could do a Killzone movie. They did. What the fuck? Was it Wolf? The fuck is that movie? Jinro is basically, that's where they stole the Hellgast from. So you could maybe do that. But yeah, what other Sony franchises? Wipeout. So just do just take the Gran Turismo movie and replace all the CG with and take all the cars out and put in Wipeout cars and Wipeout ships. Yeah, do Jet Moto, but do it like what was the name of that shitty surfing movie? Yeah, that's really, it had the name Blue in it. The word blue in movie, blue. That's not blue. Searching for blue movie is not going to get me what I want. movie, Blue Surfing. This will get us what we're going for. Blue Crush. Yes. Do a reboot of Blue Crush, but set against the backdrop of fucking moto jet bikes. Think about it. Yeah, at this point, I'd probably have to look at a list of IP to figure the rest out. But yeah, exactly. Let the Wachowskis make a Wipeout movie. Just make it the sequel to Speed Racer that we all have been longing for so long. God, if only. That'd be great. It is interesting that they're willing to take these franchises that, they're not exactly pumping out a lot of games in some of these franchises anymore, right? I mean, Twisted Metal is pretty well dormant. I mean, it's pretty obvious they're going to have to make another one of those probably around the time that TV show hits. But like the very idea that they're just like, yeah, Gravity Rush. Like that's not a franchise that I don't know that we'll ever see another Gravity Rush game, will we? So why not? And to them, it's probably very low risk. And there's always the chance that it harms the IP or something like that. But like these are IPs that they weren't doing anything with anyway, right? So if someone wants to come to them and be like, we want to shop around a Gravity Rush movie, they're like, great, yeah, we'll take a percentage of that, sure. Yes, we would love to make money off of a thing that we're never going to do anything with ever again. Yeah, so is there a launch date for the Twisted Metal series yet? Because they're done shooting it, right? I don't know. Anyway, just excited for Samoa Joe to be getting, a lot of work out there. Also on the PlayStation front, they announced Project Leonardo, which is an accessibility controller kit, not entirely unlike Microsoft's accessibility controller that they've done on the Xbox side, but it is kind of a big ring of buttons, and it has all the kind of jacks to plug in different types of accessibility controllers. That's great. Sony has been doing such a great job with accessibility in software for having, so many different options for like tap or hold or automatically complete this or do this. The accessibility options in their first party games have been really growing by leaps and bounds over the course of the last handful of years. But they haven't really had a great controller to meet the needs of people who have those needs. And so this feels like it is something that is, I will say I'm not an expert in accessibility controller design, but seeing, people that have been involved in this project, people from Able Gamers and Stack Up, stuff like that, kind of engaging with Sony to help build this thing. That sounds pretty awesome. They will have kind of, some firmware update stuff to kind of better support the different options that people need as well. Yeah, we'll see if does it have a, it doesn't look like they have a release date for it per se. It just says it's currently in development and they're continuing to gather feedback. But no, it doesn't look like there's any. I'm not seeing any release date information in here. Yeah. So yeah, it's got a cool look to it for sure. And yeah, they have not had one of those, so good that they are finally kind of catching up and doing something with that. I thought this had happened already, but Deadline is reporting that they are getting ready to do the Borderlands reshoots. I knew that movie was going to have to go back for reshoots at some point, but I thought that had long since happened by now. Because remember, that movie was originally scheduled to come out last year, and I was like, no, they're going to go make more of it before they do that. This news comes in the context of Eli Roth is not directing the reshoots. Tim Miller, who directed the movie Deadpool, is going to be handling the reshoots. That's mostly because of a timing issue. Eli Roth is currently making a movie called Thanksgiving, which appears to be a horror movie of some kind. And And so they've got a couple of weeks of reshoots for Borderlands, and it doesn't look like they've got any new release date for that, other than I would assume that would come out this year, since it was originally supposed to come out last year. And if they've got someone lined up to do the reshoots, then they probably just need to knock that out, and then make it happen. I don't know. We'll see here. I'm kind of looking at the names to see if anything else jumps out, but nope, it's kind of the same script stuff. Just like, hey, they're gonna get their reshoots in, which they had not done yet. But yes, I was aware that they were doing that, but I thought that happened a long time ago. I don't know how movies work. Some footage of a video game leaked out over the weekend. I know that's pretty deep, but it is reportedly an alpha of a new game that Sony is working on. Eurogamer is referring to it as Ooze, Ooze. And a little bit of it kind of got out here. It is an external studio apparently making this game in conjunction with Sony's XDev team, which that's what XDev does. They work with external developers. And the studio is apparently based in Europe, according to the source, which is a person known as Dusk Golem. And reportedly it's a UE5 game. And it's like a couple of seconds of footage. It's like barely worth talking about. So as people have dug, there's maybe some indication here that this is a People Can Fly game based on some assets that are on a People Can Fly website, I guess, that kind of match up with some of this leak. So maybe this is the next game from People Can Fly. Okay, so Ooze is not the name. Ooze is a nickname that the leaker has attached to it, and says the nickname will make more sense when people see more of this game. It's a very ooey gooey game. And not even a real idea if this game will come out or not. But there's just a couple of seconds of a sci-fi something. You're like, oh, is this what Sony is working on next? But apparently this is seeming like it could be People Can Fly working with Sony for a Sony published game. I don't know. That's not much news, honestly. I realize that, but it's always interesting to hear like what some of these first parties are doing next, because I feel like it isn't always obvious. Like, because you look at you can check off the studios that kind of work on the same types of things over and over again, as like, well, what's Naughty Dog going to do? Well, there was word that they were going to do Last of Us 3, and that seemed like pretty solid information, but they've kind of refuted that a little bit in a way that it sounds a little bit more mysterious. There was a Druckmann interview, I think in the Washington Post, where he's talking about different ways of storytelling and maybe getting away from the cinematic style a little bit and using more in-world storytelling, which I strongly welcome that, honestly, from a Naughty Dog game. I think one of my among my least favorite things about Naughty Dog's games is that they have this real devotion to this cinematic storytelling that I think they fucking mastered it. Like, good job. They nailed it. But it's like, it's one of those situations where it's like reality is kind of a weak goal. And so duplicating film is kind of a weak goal. And they've achieved it in spades. And boy, I wish that they would take their considerable technical talents and do something else stylistically. And so here, seeing Druckmann talking about like, hey, there are different ways of telling stories. And I've been really interested in games that are kind of working in that, like finding more emergent ways to tell stories. I think that's a good step from that studio. I think that would serve them very well. And I think that would be very interesting, as long as they're not instead just replacing it with like, yeah, while you're pushing up to climb up this wall, you've got a radio in your ear and you get to hear the exposition while you're climbing. Like, obviously it would need to be more deep than that. But yeah, yes, of course. Like they still are on the clock for that Last of Us multiplayer game, right? Like that's still supposed to happen. But when you think about what's next from them, what's big from them, I don't know. Like the accounts from people who have watched the episode, I think HBO put out some unfinished episodes of Last of Us for critics, and it sounds like people are liking it. Which I wonder if then, there's probably a lot of good reasons to make a third Last of Us game. They have said that they had a story in mind that they could tell for a third game. But boy, I sure would like for them to do something else. It'd be really nice to see that studio come up with something fresh and new and not just another Last of Us game and not just another Uncharted game. And obviously you can do new things in those spaces, but I think it would be interesting to see them kind of stretch their creative muscles all the way and come up with something whole cloth. I think the time is right for that. There are enough games in on both of these franchises that have done fucking gangbusters for them that I would just love to see something else at this point. It's one of the most talented studios in the fucking world from a technical perspective, and yeah, it'd be nice to see something else. Something a little less set piece focused. I don't know, like that, I don't know what do you want? I don't know what I want. That's the thing. If I knew what I wanted, I'd be off making it. But the kind of the signature hallmarks of a Naughty Dog game, I still don't think anyone's doing it quite like them. But also, I don't know that I necessarily love their style, like the games they've been making. I don't especially care for the Last of Us franchise. The Uncharted games were fine up to a point, and they were like, the shooting in this is not great. And the climbing in this is really stakes free. And so on and so forth. I think it'd be cool to see them do something else. Europe wins again. The United States can get bent. The United States can fuck right off. Because for the first time ever in 22 countries, Oreo will be releasing special edition packs with multiple new cookie designs, bringing together the iconography of Xbox with the deliciousness of Oreo. Great fucking sentence. 22 European countries will be getting Oreos with Xbox icons on them. This is not planned for the United States. And frankly, we don't deserve it. If more of you had gotten vaccinated, we could have had the fucking Xbox Oreos, but instead, so I don't know. They show these cookies. They have Xbox buttons on one side of the cookie. They're just fucking Oreos. They're not green. They're not a different flavor. They are just they're just Oreos with Xbox stuff on them. That's kind of cool. Okay. So the actually interesting thing here. This seems, and I don't know what this means. There's okay, so obviously they've got the face buttons and an arrow, and the arrow can point any which way. So you can take your Oreos and, you can make the Konami code out of them if you so desire. But if they're saying this paragraph in this announcement is okay, I don't know what this means here. I assume you're not going to have to guess, but okay. Entering the baked-in symbols in the correct sequence can unlock exciting, exclusive Oreo-themed in-game content, such as armor packs and vehicle skins for popular titles like Forza Horizon 5, Sea of Thieves, and Halo Infinite. Additionally, there's a drawing to win prizes ranging from custom Oreo hardware, Xbox consoles, Game Pass Ultimate memberships, and a holiday experience for the whole family. These will be available in Europe starting this month. You can go to oreo.eu. All right, yeah. Anyway, I don't know if that's you have to guess the codes or if it's just going to come with a code in the box or what the fuck the deal is there, but there's some kind of in-game thing here. And they're showing I'm looking at pictures of Halo stuff on the page, and Okay, I guess it's the color of the Oreo packaging. It's that blue. Because I'm looking at this and going like, Oreos are black and white. I don't know why you're showing me these blue fucking Halo Mans. But, yeah. Oh, and then the white is kind of speckly, like it's... Okay, yeah. Sure. I like an Oreo cookie milkshake. Some fast food establishments will sell you one of those. Oreos are fine. I like the golden ones, and I like the lemon ones. Speaking of Xbox, Windows Central is reporting that there will be a new Xbox event this month, potentially on the 25th. Yeah, it's very specific. It's like, it's been rumored for some time now. We believe we have concrete information. It will go live January 25th at 12 p.m. Pacific time, but that may be subject to change. Games expected to appear include Redfall, Forza Motorsport, and Minecraft Legends. This will be an intimate look at major games for 2023 as Microsoft seeks to ramp up transparency and frequency on upcoming Xbox games. That makes sense. Yeah, so that's Windows Central's reporting on this, and as such, we've heard, okay, it's an intimate look at upcoming exclusives. As such, we've heard Starfield may even be skipping this show for a bigger marketing beat later on. I think that makes sense. Yeah, like Redfall and Forza and Minecraft Legends are like, that's, notice that they're not saying Fable in this list. I wonder if we see anything else or if it ends up being focused on those 3 games. And, yeah. Like, it's right for them to have, like, they need a marketing beat here for these games because I think they need to start talking about release windows and everything. Like, what Redfall kind of has one, right? They didn't just get pushed. Redfall is out in, was it May? Okay, that's a report. That's not an actual fact, but that is supposedly where it is landing. I would assume Forza lands somewhere later in the year, like a fall release, but I don't know. Minecraft Legends, I don't actually know what the release window is here for that, but I don't think they've said. But I think it's safe to assume, at least, that those are 3 games that they're confident will ship this year. So, okay, Forza's supposed to be by summer. Okay. Well, I guess they have Starfield. Starfield. Yeah, anyway, I don't know. The Xbox release calendar has been a fucking mess. These games getting pushed back, and they announced some stuff a little early, and there's just the Xbox calendar feels very off track, and it feels like that there are some situations where they showed games and now they just need to put them out, and that there are some cases where they announced games that they haven't really shown, for like a Fable. And so I don't know, like, is development on all these games, has it all been super troubled? And so they've all been all over the place. Where, like, remember, like, no one's talking about Perfect Dark other than that recent thing of saying, like, development's going great. Still working on it. And the talk of, like, is the Coalition, is there going to be another Gears? Are they just going to go right into another Gears game? Or... is that, are we at a time when it makes sense for that to come out? There was some talk and rumor about, or maybe it was just desire, but people wanting like a full-on re-release of the original Gears games in some form. And so maybe do we end up with something like that that's a Master Chief Collection, but for Gears? But yeah, like this year seems like it could be pretty full, so maybe you don't put out a full-on Gears sequel this year. Because all the stuff that was originally going to ship last year or whatever didn't make it out, and, some stuff got moved around, and I don't know. Yeah, the Xbox calendar just feels strange. Was there talk about a Gears card game? Or am I fucking high? Both are possible. Yeah. Okay, that's an actual physical card game that got announced. That's not a That's not a phone game or something like that. There is some company, Steam Forged Games Limited, is working on a Gears of War card game for release sometime this year. But that is a physical, actual card game. I thought maybe that was going to be a phone thing. They're like, Gears Pop didn't work, but this will. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Microsoft just feels this, an event like this, doing it in January, especially if this is them kind of trying to establish a cadence for information drops, is probably a good thing. They need to reestablish that. They need to kind of get back on track and feel like, okay, we've got dates announced for these things. We've shown more of this. We've, I think you inherently know what Forza Motorsport is going to be, but at the same time, I feel like they've just been they just haven't shown that much of it, right? It'll be fine, I'm sure, but yeah, I don't know. There feels like there's multiplayer stuff from Forza Horizon that maybe you could try to put into regular Forza. No, probably not. A lot of the stuff just relies on it being an open world game. So what do you do to Forza to freshen it up? Other than continue to make it look better, right? I mean, that's the thing, is this will be the first Forza the first Forza Motorsport on this hardware. This is, they gave them extra time to really blow it out and make it look great, apparently. And that's why it hasn't come out yet. And these tires are round as fuck. But, short of like, okay, we've got way more tracks now, or, the Nürburgring has never looked this good, Big Fish on the Discord says add in actual damage. Like, yeah, you're not gonna get that with licensed cars. You're not gonna get that the way you want it. It's not gonna be fucking BeamNG, the realist damage. So like, what do you do with Forza Motorsport to freshen it up, or just has it been enough time since the last one of those came out that you can just go like, hey, Forza's back, and have that be more than enough for most people? I don't know. Maybe there's more stuff they could do on the multiplayer side to give it kind of I was going to say like an esports edge or something like that. I don't know if they really care about this Gran Turismo movie and the notion of like, this Gran Turismo driver went from playing the video game to driving in real life. Like, that's the real life story they're trying to tell in the movie. Microsoft could probably use a story like that. Not necessarily in a movie, but like if they've got more cases of like, this game is so fucking real now that more and more real drivers are using this as opposed to Gran Turismo, or whatever. I don't know. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter, because like those people probably get those games anyway. What you need is, how do you get a more mainstream, wider audience to care about a simulation skewing driving game? Because or are they just sated by Forza Horizon? Because Forza Horizon is just fun, and it has a lot of the same car stuff. It is maybe not as accurate in some of the physics or something, but it is based on a very similar model, and most people are not going to fucking notice. So yeah, I just the idea of like, okay, here you're doing another Forza Motorsport. Okay, great, you should. It's been a while, but what does that bring to the table? I think that's the question I still kind of need answered. And so that seems like something that they could be getting into, because most of it has been focused on just like, these cars look fucking sick now. And I'm like, great, they have looked sick for years relative to the hardware that have appeared on. Of course, I would expect nothing less. It's a driving game. You can't ship one of those without having the cars look sick. But what's the other piece? What's the other piece to it? Is there another piece that you can find that is going to bring in that wider audience, or is that just left to Forza Horizon and you're like, whatever, this isn't for them? I don't know. I have loved Forza Motorsport games, but I think I feel, when Forza Motorsport 3 came out, I felt like, well, I had my time with this game. I had an amazing time with this game. It's 3 or 4. And everything they put out after that, it was like, yeah, these are kind of like you've got the same environments, and yes, the tires are much more round this time, but you have mastered this. Like, obviously, yes, this game is better than the last one in some ways, but in terms of the format of the game, you mastered it years ago. So if they're going to reboot it and not put a number on it, I kind of want to see what else they're doing to make that stick out. If that makes any sense, you know? Let me fuck the cars. Meta, everyone's favorite Facebook shell corporation. I don't know what is Meta. I don't even know. I don't want to know. Facebook, your friends over at Facebook have decided to end support for the Oculus Quest 1. I'm sorry, the Meta Quest 1. I will never feel comfortable calling that company anything about that thing Meta. Like, none of that sounds good. Give it another decade maybe, but like nothing about that sounds right rolling off the tongue. It just, anyway, Facebook is ending support for the first Quest, is the email they sent out to Quest 1 owners. It reads, we launched Quest 1 over 4 years ago, and we are grateful to the Quest 1 community for pushing VR forward. As we look to the future, we remain committed to supporting the community of Quest 1 users, and will continue to support the headset with a few changes. And then they've got some bullet points here. You will still be able to use your Quest 1 headset and available apps. Wow, thanks. It's really fucking noble of you. Awesome. Hey, bullet point number 1, right out of the way. You can still use your Quest 1. Woo! People jumping up. Yes! I will continue to be able to use this thing I purchased. Bullet point 2. We won't be shipping new features to Quest 1. Yeah, it's, it's an older headset. I get it. We plan to continue maintaining the system software with critical bug fixes and security patches until 2024. Okay? Yeah, so I guess nothing. Yeah, okay. You're not going to support a headset forever. This thing is, they are saying it is over 4 years old. I don't think that's that long. But okay. All right. Next. Quest 1 users will no longer be able to create or join a party. It seems like I don't know how the multiplayer functionality works in these games, but I assume that means you're not going to be able to get together any friends to play your games together, and that you'll just be stuck in matchmaking for multiplayer games. Like, you won't be able to like form a party with your friends and then take them into a game. I assume that's what that means. Quest 1 users who currently have access to Meta Horizon Home social features will lose access to these features on March 5th, 2023. You won't be able to invite others to your home or visit someone else's home. So, features that exist on the headset today, they are going to pull. So that seems like it's kind of part and parcel with not being able to create or join a party, that they're not going to let you get people together in your virtual home, and which is, kind of like partying up, I would assume. But that's it. That's the end of the bullet points. There's no like thing at the end of like, and you'll get a discount on upgrading to a Quest if you so desire. There's no like, hey, trust us, everything will work great. It's just like, yep, all right. That just, the idea of the Quest 1, when did the Quest 1 actually hit stores? Oculus Quest 1. 29. No, wait, no, that can't be. Yeah. No, 2019. Right. Yeah, I guess that's So they announced they released this thing in May of 2019 and then discontinued it in September of 2020 because the Quest 2 came out in October of 2020. I forgot that it was that fast from Quest to Quest 2. That's fucking wild in that context. So yes, if you bought the first Quest in 2019, they're just gonna fucking shut off a bunch of stuff. I don't know. That's, I guess, in the context of a device that has been discontinued since the year 2020, maybe that starts to make a little bit of sense, but gosh, this seems like a shitty way to go. Especially because it seems like all of the stuff they're doing from the social side and just the social front end of the Quest 2, which I have not used a ton of, but I did have to update my firmware and mess with it a little bit recently. Like, all of the stuff they're doing just seems shitty. The same way that everything around the horizon, around the, like, you should be having your meetings in VR. Like, all of that stuff seems like fucking stuff that no one wants to do. And so if they're forking, if they're cutting off the Quest 1 because they're like, hey, we're iterating on this stuff so rapidly over here on the Quest 2 that the Quest 1 can't really run it well anymore because it's not as powerful a device. Like, I get it. Like, time marches on, right? But everything that Facebook have fucking done around the social aspects of the fucking Quest 2, the social aspects of VR in general as of late, seems like fucking total dog shit that no one wants to fucking engage with. Whereas, like, the idea of just like, I would like to party up with people and then join a game and play it, that sounds like a very natural, normal thing to do. But if on the Quest 2, you're like, well, okay, well, now you've got to click the button and open the door and then welcome to my home. And now we're on here and look at me. I look just like me, but not. And now let's go off and play a game together. And then we'll come back. And, like if they're discontinuing the easy way to just like fucking create and join parties because they're so focused on goddamn metaverse trash, like that is potentially very shitty. I don't know. So I look at that and just go like that then you get into a thing of like, well, yeah, why are they shutting these features off? What do these features look like on the Quest 2 and the Quest Pro nowadays? Because I should refamiliarize myself with that stuff, because like I said, every time I turn on the Quest 2 and get in there, it seems like the interface has just gotten like more and more fucking like, okay, the store is right in front of my face, but like, how do I, like, all these menus are getting even more convoluted. Like, even just like updating the firmware with a device that I don't use all that often is like a process of like fucking jumping down that rabbit hole and going, okay, is it in this menu? No. Okay. Do I go to about in here? Is it like, because this is an Android device, they hide it here. Like, and it's just, yeah, I don't know. I think if I used it more, then you'd just be used to it, right? And it wouldn't matter. So it's like kind of, it's maybe not that big of a deal for a heavier VR user. Whereas for me, it feels like that interface feels alien every time I go into it. And it's like, okay, this stuff is still in the same spot. And they're like, okay, I can turn on hand tracking here, but can I use it here? Where can I use it? It's not always clear. Like, there's just and the social experience of like, you can have players following you and this and that. And, you've got your friends list in VR. And do you want all the stuff about like, do you want other people to see when you're playing VR games? And for whatever reason, I'm okay with this on consoles, but there was something about VR, the intimacy of VR, I don't know what you want to say, but like, or maybe it's just Facebook, but with every one of those things, I was like, no, I don't want anyone to see when I'm using this. I don't want anyone to fucking see me online. I don't want to fucking follow other players. I don't want to fucking, no, absolutely not. I don't want to touch any of this stuff. So, I don't know. It's unfortunate. I think because this device got cut off so fast, it's maybe a little frustrating. But in the context of like, this thing has been discontinued since 2020, I guess I could see them ending certain types of support for it. This just seems like again, in the context of like feeling like everything they're announcing for Quest 2 from a system, from an ecosystem perspective, from a infrastructure, whatever you want to call it, everything they're talking about for VR seems like less and less attractive as time goes on. You know, as they talk about Horizon, as they talk about, you know, it's like, no, I just want a fucking good, clean menu. Let me load up a game. Let me see if my friends are online. Let me see an invite. I just want like Xbox level of interactions here. I don't need to see their fucking avatar. I don't want to have an avatar. In fact, I created an avatar a long time ago that I want to delete this fucking thing, and I couldn't find it anywhere. Like, let me get rid of this. And yeah, Facebook is Facebook, and so, you know, Facebook's rep is terrible, is obviously terrible. So, you know, when it comes to privacy, when it comes to all that, I don't feel compelled to build a good foundation there in VR. So yeah, I don't know. It's unfortunate, I think, for the Quest 1 owners out there that this is happening, but I guess you could also maybe make the argument that anyone that really cares about that stuff maybe cares enough about VR that they would have upgraded to a different headset by now anyway. But who actually knows? I don't know. I don't have numbers in front of me that can say that with any kind of certainty. So so there you have it, Quest 1 owners. I have a Quest 1 around here somewhere, but I also have a Quest 2, so I haven't really messed with it. I feel like, you know, the VR headset market still feels so nascent that cutting off early adopters and stuff just feels like a crummy thing to do. But I don't know. Did you look at any of the CES coverage coming out? I tried to look and see, like, did anything cool happen at CES? And the answer seemingly is no. But I don't know, like, you know what, there were the Nvidia announcements that we talked about last week. There was the Sony stuff that we talked about this week. Yeah, some monitors, some decent monitors. But like, there was some wild stuff, like here's a 360-degree display that you can sit in the middle of, and, you know, like the weird shit that CES always has. Like, here's a car that changes color, and you're like, here's a fridge that changes color. You're like, all right, fuck it, why not? But yeah, I didn't really see, like, it just felt like. But the other weird thing I saw in watching some video wrap-ups of the show was it really seemed like there were 20 different companies with shitty looking VR headsets, and so. Are companies still like, here's Sharp's new VR headset? And you're like, why? Why would you get into this? Why do you feel the need to get into this market? Like, what's here for you? Like, what do you, you know? When you've got, you know, I guess maybe no one's established enough of a foothold for it to not feel like something they could do. But, it just felt weird. Like, oh yeah, I guess, okay. Is it going to work with Steam VR? Because that's the only thing you're going to really care about, right? Like, can it do this, or not? Does it interface with this stuff? Does it work with? Because it seems like you would just get a Valve Index, and unless there's something dramatically better out there. I mean, there's always like the, you know, Pimax has a fucking 8K per eye, like, you know, whatever that horse shit is. But like, I don't know. The Valve Index always seemed like a really good sweet spot for anyone that wanted to buy VR and use it. I'm sure there's an enterprise market that demands more technology, better technology, and so on and so forth. But when you look at the VR games coming out, it's really hard to know, like, what is the right VR headset to get. Like, I would have said it's the Quest 2, because the Quest 2 has its built-in stuff that you can use, and also you can, you know, tether it to a PC to play PC games. And Valve will have its, you know, it supposedly has a standalone headset, a similar device in the works. And so maybe that will become the go-to, because the Quest Pro is not it. It's not enough of a step up for the price increase. And so when they say that thing's for enterprise, I think they mean it. I think you look at it and go like, it doesn't seem like there's a great reason for a consumer to go from a Quest 2 to a Quest Pro. But, you know, stuff like the Valve Index, you know, you're going to end up in those situations where, like, that's a better headset in a lot of ways than a Quest 2, but also it comes with, now you've got to hook up sensors, now you got to hook up this, now you got to hook up that. So, like, when Valve has its standalone device, will that fill a gap somewhere between the Quest 2 and the Index? Is it something that's like, here's something that's noticeably better quality, but it still has its own built-in thing. It still has its own built-in app store. We can still run VR games natively on it and everything. Like it's just an increasingly weird market, and I don't know. Like I thought it made a lot of sense when Oculus said we're not making any PC headsets anymore because we're just going to make the Quest. I was like, yeah, okay, because those things hook up to a PC anyway, and they can run their own things. That's a good, that seems like a solid entry-level headset for anyone that doesn't need to go bonkers on some insane other device, right? Like the Quest and the PlayStation VR felt like really good, hot fucking middle ground of like, okay, yeah, like this is, you get a lot of bang for your buck here. You get a lot of features at the price point. Like this is a no-brainer if you're going to buy a VR headset one way or the other. Why wouldn't you get that one? Was always the thinking, right? You're like, well, okay, the Valve Index is better in this way, but then you got to put up base stations, then you got to do this. It's tethered. You got, you know, the pros and cons of all these different headsets come into play at that point. Because I would love nothing more than to have a Valve Index hooked up full time, just so I could just like throw it on and try stuff. But I don't have the space for that. I'm never going to be able to do that. So and so I have an Index here that I haven't really been able to use, and it's frustrating. But I have a Quest, but also this room is not big enough for room scale stuff, so it's like I can roll this chair out of the way and kind of do some standing stuff and hopefully not punch anything and blah, you know. It's just such a strange, yeah, I don't know. I always go back, there was a quote, I think it was Chet, when Chet was at Valve. Chet Falzek, if I'm pronouncing that right. And it was, the question was like, when they were first doing the Vive, when Valve was showing off the Vive. And, you know, he got the question of just like, hey, isn't this a lot of space? And the response was like, we find that when people try this out, they make room. And I was just like, that is just, no. Nuh-uh. And that one stuck with me in terms of just like, it should have been that way. It should have been. VR should have been great. There should have been such a great run of software to make it worth doing that, but it just didn't happen. And it just didn't happen. It's so weird that it didn't happen. That's why I keep talking about this. And I know we talk in circles about VR a lot around here, but it just seems like something that should have been a fucking slam dunk, grand slam, whatever fucking like, oh, VR is the future. Here it is. It's here. But it just didn't fucking happen. The headsets were expensive, so the game development didn't always happen. And so game developers in VR, a lot of them were getting propped up by investment money because there were a ton of investors who were convinced that VR was something they had to get in on. And so there was a ton of money in the space. And so everyone was like, well, we're going to make a VR game. And so you had a lot of studios show up and take all that funding and go, fuck yeah, we're getting all this money. This is great. We got an office space and we got all these VR headsets. So rad. And then all those investors said, you know what's cool? Crypto. See you fuckers later. And then that was that, man. Because while that money was there, it didn't establish enough of a fucking user base. It didn't establish. And it's not like VR is going to go away. It's always going to fucking be around in some way, shape, or form. And obviously it's, you know, things are happening at an enterprise level that are exciting for the people that need that shit. But it's very inconvenient. It's, I think it revealed that maybe we are a little more social than we thought. If you live around other people, I guess. Like if I lived alone, then yeah, sure, whatever. cranking it to VR porn right now. But I don't, and I'm not gonna like put on. That was a conversation I had with someone. There was like very early on in the VR thing, was someone that had kids that was just like, I can't, like this doesn't fit into my life. This idea that like I can just like put this thing on and go away for hours and just like leave my wife and kids and be like, see you fuckers later. I'm on the moon jacking off to space porn. Like, no, I can't do that. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a lot of the caveats. We've gone over them, and I don't think that, you know, a fucking higher resolution headset is going to surmount these issues. I don't think like it's got hand tracking. I don't think any of the technological improvements that you see in the VR space actually address the real issues around the kind of closed off experience that VR is. And, you know, obviously that technology keeps developing. I think we do eventually get to that point where technology keeps developing to a point where AR replaces VR, because you can black out the AR goggles to make it seem like VR. And so it can kind of do both. But like, do we get enough technology in the head unit itself or in the hip pack or whatever the fuck we're dealing with to make that something that you can just wear around? Like, are people going to be wearing their AR glasses in the fucking streets and looking at people and going like, oh, that's Frank. His birthday is in March. You should say hi to him. His wife's name is Carol. You know, like, are we ever going to get that dumb experience? I don't know. I don't know anymore. I don't even want that anymore. That's the other thing. I think that, you know, seeing, you know, the rise of Google Glass and people getting fucking beat up in bars wearing their fucking Google Glass, as they should have been. Like, that was the moment that I think a lot of things changed for me. Or one that I could look back at that as one of the key moments in terms of like my worldview of just like going from like, yeah, man, technology, they should keep advancing it. Fuck it. Everyone else will get in line. We'll figure it out. They should just keep making to like, oh no, this is fucking stupid. And these motherfuckers should get the shit beat out of them for trying to wear these things into fucking bar bathrooms and all this other stupid ass shit. Like, those people should get fucked up. And as this tech continues to advance, and when fucking Google Glass comes back around again, I don't think that is something that I don't think that the social issues around that, I don't think go away. And I was reading an article, I forget where it was, but it was someone basically saying like, hey, in 2023, stop fucking filming me on the fucking street. And it was talking about all these fucking TikTok assholes that like they are creating content and like doing well on social media by running up and shoving their phones in people's faces and being like, what are you listening to? What car do you drive? What house do you know? Like they're doing these corny ass man on the street interviews, but like for dumb reasons and the stupidest shit. Like, hey, you look like someone who's not as well off as I am. Can I buy your groceries? I'm going to film the whole thing because look at how good I am. Like, these fuckers need to be put up against the fucking wall. Cut these fuckers' throats, man. What the fuck are we doing? And so the idea of that technology continuing to shrink down in ways that, you know, you're back to wearing his glasses and back to hiding in all these different ways, like, nah, man. Nope. Like, people won't fucking stand for it. It's not going to be something that people warm up to over time. It's at least not, I don't think that's something that happens in our lifetime. Like, maybe that stuff gets normalized when there are different levels of protections in place and, you know, oh, I'm wearing the glasses too, and my glasses tell me that you're recording, so I'm gonna fucking punch you in your fucking face now, RoboCop. You're not gonna fucking get fucking Clarence Boddicker on fucking camera fucking spilling his guts to nope, not fucking happening. You're not gonna have me fucking going, it was Dick Jones. It was Dick Jones. So that stuff, yeah, I used to feel very differently about all that, but now I'm very much on the side of like, no, you crack these motherfuckers with an elbow if they are fucking pointing that shit at you, man. like nah. And I'm on camera all the time. Like that's the other, like I feel like particularly desensitized to a lot of conversations around privacy for the simple fact that there are decades of there's thousands of hours of footage of me on the fucking internet. We're making more right here, right now. There's so many fucking pictures of me doing stupid shit online that it's like I've lost control of that. That's not, like, so the idea of people like, don't upload your photos to the AI robot app that takes your photo. Like, they already fucking have it, man. There's already pictures of me in Stable Diffusion. It's fucking done. It's fucking, it's over for me. But it doesn't have to be over for you. Protect your neck. Put on the Juggalo makeup so that the facial recognition systems can't fucking figure you out. But yeah, something about it's specifically the idea that someone's going to come up and fucking make money off of ramming a camera into your face. That's the thing that's just like, nope. Fuck your thing. I don't care what your thing is. Straight up. So I don't know where all this leads. It's nowhere good. There was the story yesterday about like, people think that there's, was it Microsoft and Google working on this? They're like, oh, hey, or was it Apple? I forget who it was, but it was like, hey, we're gonna, the technology is here for us to roll out AI voices for audiobooks. And I look at that and go like, yeah, of course, sure. Yeah, why wouldn't you do that? Like, oh, right, because like voice actors work and you're replacing these people with robots and that's shitty and you could just, you could just pay them to fucking read it. It's not like that, there's plenty of people out there that could do that work. But yeah, but at the same time, the AI voice stuff I think is fascinating. Like it's all very fascinating technology, and we are existing at a kind of a new fringe here with this, where we're pushing up against people's desires and society and people's livelihoods, kind of all over again in a way that it feels like that kind of new frontier, the way the internet did in the 90s. Think about if you were an encyclopedia salesman when the internet happened, or when the internet started coalescing. Encyclopedia Britannica, how's their business? Maybe it's doing great. I actually don't know. But like in a world where Wikipedia exists and is good enough for most people, whether it's accurate or not, all the encyclopedia folks, they got fucked. A lot of information is, like those sorts of things, map makers. I'm sure there's still people out there making fucking physical maps, but like, when was the last time you used one? And so that's always going to continue. I always look at it as like society, and this is like a large scale problem. This is not a problem we're going to solve in the context of this podcast. I'm sorry, but I always thought about it in terms of, clean energy, and they're like, oh, all these coal miners will be out of jobs. All right. You know what you do? You subsidize them. We find a way to make sure that they are earning a living wage, that they are able to live, because their job got replaced by something better for the environment. Or if people can't be retrained to work on this, if people can't be, can't go work on the new shit, then you pay them, and you try to fucking figure that out, because there's not infinite number, you would not have to pay new people who want to be coal miners. You take the existing coal miners and go like, here you go. Here you go. This is worth it to us, either as a government subsidy or as the clean energy companies. You just go like, here you go. We're going to pay you to not mine coal because we don't need it anymore. We want to move on from it. Done. And then those people go find something else to do. Or if they are not able to be retrained to do something else, like, here you go. Just fucking live, baby. Your job got replaced by robots, and so you're taken care of. And I just think you have to fucking rethink a lot of that. Obviously, you know, a lot of things need a fucking rethink here worldwide, but well, whatever. We're not moving in that direction, you know. So it's like it's a fucking pipe dream at best, right? You know, you look at it and go like, these problems seem solvable when you look at the amount of money this nation spends on fucking absolute horse shit. You could probably fucking not even notice. You could probably pay every coal miner their exact salary plus cost of living increases for the rest of their days and not even fucking notice. But hey. And, you know, that's the, you know, as we think about trucking and we think about automated systems, which that's, you know, obviously that stuff's for horse shit these days. But, you know, you end up in a situation where like, oh, we've replaced the men and women that drive trucks with robots and trains. Like, okay, well, take care of the truckers. Help them figure out something else that they could do. And if that's not an option, let them come home and play fucking Euro Trucker like the rest of us and enjoy it. Break 1.9, good buddy. Fucking take a fucking load off. And that, I think that's one of those things that becomes that should be kind of the responsibility of technologists as they replace people's jobs. You're like, okay, well, you know, these are real costs that we have to help with, whether that's a universal basic income or something that is exclusively for people who are impacted by robots. I don't know. You know, like I said, we're not going to solve anything here, but Jesus Christ, man. Those problems seem like that they are something we could address. But instead, we are too busy grinding people into dust, and why stop now? It's working out so well. Why stop now? And that's why we're calling for revolution here today. All right, no. Okay. All right, why don't we get into some fucking emails? I wasn't always, you know, like I said, it's very easy growing up to not really see the big picture of any of this stuff and just go like, for me as a kid, I wanted, so as someone who had very specific orders at a fast food restaurant, they would get it wrong all the time. And that was always heartbreaking to me because we would get home and it would be wrong and I'd be like, well, I'm just not going to eat that, I guess. And we're already home, so we're fucked. I was like, they need touch screens. They need robots taking orders in the fucking, because I can tell a robot fucking, okay, do this. No goddamn mayonnaise, you monsters. And let me get an exact fucking thing together that is unambiguous. This is how it needs to be made. No one misheard me and punched in something wrong. I have done it all here, and maybe I've fucked it up, and you have to account for that. But like, past a certain point, you're like, okay, yeah, this is how I want it. Let's go. This is how I would prefer it to be made. And so take all those people out of the loop, like the beginning of fucking War Games. Fucking, you don't need people there. Turn at the key. Put Whopper in fucking place. Get me Whopper for Whoppers. But, you know, that's now I think when you see a little bit more of the cause and effect of that sort of stuff and start to think through like, oh man, okay, so that impacts these people that, you know, are already getting fucked on wages because they're, you know, working fast food. You know, there's like so many different things there. You start to see all of that. You go like, okay, all right. I see why humans need to exist in this part of the process. And actually I've come to prefer it in a lot of ways. Not because I'm afraid of technology, you know. There's always the people that like when, oh, they would put in a touch screen or do something. There are people like, I don't like. I want to talk to a I'm pushing 0 on the phone tree because I need to talk to a goddamn human. It's not that. I love seeing all these advances. It's all very exciting, but the societal impact of those advances. I think that was the change that happened in me, is realizing that all of those larger impacts need to be considered and handled. You can't just like introduce this thing into the ecosystem and be like, all right, everybody else get fucked. You can't fucking do that to society. Like we have a responsibility to each other. The government should have a responsibility to us, its citizens. All right. Anyway, sorry. We're not gonna solve any of these fucking problems, but like, too many people get left hanging. Too many people get left hanging, and it's fucking bad. Why don't we get into some emails? Podcast@guard.bike is the email address. Send in your emails, and I will give a look at them. That is my promise to you, the listener. Except this week, when I have not looked at many of them, but I have looked at some of them. And let's start with this one. Nathan from Tumwater, Washington writes in and says, what did you think of the Mortal Kombat movie? I liked it. The most recent one, I thought it was pretty good. I'm usually pretty hard to please when it comes to any kind of video game material, but the most recent Mortal Kombat film I thought was pretty good. I thought it told a fine story. The fights were good. It was solid. I think parts of it were kind of corny, and them introducing a new character, like all of that sort of stuff. I think could have gone way worse than it did. So it's one of those situations where I think you have to look at it and go like, well, yes, they have told a good new story in the Mortal Kombat universe. Is it 1000% faithful to the video games? No, but that wouldn't necessarily work out either. I think part of me feels better about this from a perspective of the last handful of Mortal Kombat games have had really good story modes, really and really solid storytelling that exists purely in the game and in that world. And I think that stuff being good has made me open to the idea of like, okay, here's this movie that's kind of playing a little more fast and loose with the franchise. I think it worked out fine. It is the best Mortal Kombat movie. How about that? I know that's a fucking low bar. But that first one, the first one was okay. Armageddon's a terrible film. Terrible. But Mortal Kombat 11 is so much fun, story-wise. So when they go like, and we got this new guy's Cole something, I don't know, he's some MMA jack-off. All right, perfect, great, yeah. Put him in, why not? Sure. Have this new guy meeting the Mortal Kombat fighters for the first time, and sure, I think that worked out really well for it. It was a fine, fun movie. That again, I think if the game's stories had been kind of lackluster or not as well told, I think I would maybe be a little bit more like, oh, they didn't stick to the script, they didn't do this and they didn't do that. So as those things go, I'm going to say it's among the best video game adaptations I have seen. Pretty short list. There's that Sia video that has all the Guitar Hero stuff in it. That's pretty good. That's about it. Those are the two good things. Let's see. Mason writes in and says, why can't we gift games to our friends on PlayStation? One of my favorite parts of the Steam ecosystem is the ability to gift games. Any idea why such a system hasn't been implemented on PlayStation? To me, this seems like it would only increase sales. Am I the only one who wants this feature? It's very noble of you. I think that's, they should do that. I imagine it's a situation where they just haven't done the work. It's probably on a list somewhere of like, oh yeah, we should do that. All right, we'll put it on the list. It's prioritized behind the 9 other critical things we have to get to first. And I might also say that there are probably some considerations around credit card fraud that they have to deal with. Because if you're gifting a game to someone else and then they redeem it and then it's in their library and then the card comes up bad, now you're like, okay, we've got to undo this transaction and we've got to pull this back out of their library because this happened. It's kind of a long chain there. So, you probably end up in a situation where people don't want to. Yeah, I'm going to guess that it's a situation of like, okay, there's a lot of fraud considerations that they have to do, that they have to account for when building gifting into their platform. So that's my guess. Tom from Kansas writes in and says, what's your take on these long-ass game retrospectives all over YouTube? There's a place for academic examination of games, but I wonder how often a developer watches one and says, no, you idiot, that's not what happened, or that's not how game dev works. Also, 90 minutes of story analysis for a Sonic game about chili dogs and Chaos Emeralds seems absurd. I think that, I don't really have any recommendations in that space. I think that, what Danny is doing with No Clip is awesome, but I think that's kind of a separate thing because he's deliberately going and talking to the people involved, right? I mean, that's the difference, right? I think it's very easy to go like Google a game, read what you can, and then try to turn that into a script. And, I don't know that that's what some of these people are. I'm sure some people are doing that. But yeah, I don't know. There is a lot of it. And, but also there's a lot of things that I think if you were a developer you were there every step of the way and know what happened. There are situations that I've been a part of that you see speculation on online and you're just like, that's not remotely close to how any of this stuff works or how this situation played out or anything along those lines. And I think that you see some of that stuff get turned into long form video content, and you're gonna have situations where someone Googled a thing or tracked down a Wikipedia thing and said like, oh, and then repeated that even though it wasn't 100% true. But I think the people, I don't know that I have recommendations in this space, but I think like if I were looking at that and thinking about the ways to do that best, it's either you talk to everyone or you talk to no one. And by talking to no one, you then make sure that you are focusing on things that you can back up instead of just like speculating or as long as you're speculate your ass off, like it's a free fucking country. You can do whatever you want. I just, I think it would be better if you labeled it as such. And we're like, okay, this is, like we talked, it was a couple weeks ago. I spent a lot of time talking about what happened with the so-called Switch Pro versus a full-fledged Switch upgrade and tried to walk through like, why did that happen? And it was like, I don't know, it was like 10 minutes of me just like kind of really pulling things out of my ass, but like trying to at least think about like, how could this have gone in a world where we don't know what happened, what probably happened here? And I tried to make sure that I was labeling that as such as like, it could have happened this way. This is some fucking Ripley's fucking believe it or not type shit though. I don't, I wasn't there. I've had limited conversations, and from that I can extrapolate that maybe this occurred. But I think you have to fucking, it's better off if you're making sure that you're letting people know that that is speculation. And or that it's you trying to piece together an imperfect story. It is really hard in some cases to go back and get the real story about how a game was developed or the choices that were made and why. And, unless you're talking to the people involved, but even talking to the people involved, they've all, some of them will have an axe to grind and a specific way they want to tell the story. This is something that documentarians have been dealing with for generations, right? Going back and retelling these stories, forget video games, just in anything, and trying to eliminate bias and make sure that they're like, okay, we need to make sure that we're getting multiple perspectives on the same story because we don't know if this one person we talk to is remembering it right, or if they're remembering it, everyone's going to remember it their own way. So you kind of just need to ideally have multiple sources and a lot of reference material to pull from. And so you can kind of traffic in facts and opinion from the people who were there. But that stuff takes a long time. And so if I was trying to do that kind of work on a regular basis, if I was like, I'm going to do like a big retrospective of a game, I don't think I would go, if I was trying to make stuff like that, I don't know that I would go the route of talking to all the developers. Because to me, that's a different thing. And I think I very much would like to do some of that in specific cases. But in this specific type of retrospective, I would probably instead focus on talking to people who played the game and how it made them feel and what they remember about it at the time. I think that is a side of this that is not always super well represented, and it's a lot easier to attain than, having access to all these developers that are, some of them are getting up there in years and some of them are just straight up not around. And yeah, that's probably the route I would go. Joe from Hawaii writes in, hello, Joe, and says, have you ever seen Hanging with the Homeboys? It's a 1991 movie starring Mario Joyner, Dougie Doug, and John Leguizamo. It's cheesy but good. You should watch it sometime if you haven't seen it. I have, Hawaii Joe, I have seen Hanging with the Homeboys, but I don't think I've seen it since like 1992. So I don't know. I remember thinking it was okay. I don't know. I don't remember much about Hanging with the Homeboys other than I just like that dude's name is Dougie Doug. And whatever happened to Mario Joyner? Was the last time? I feel like Mario Joyner was everywhere. Early days of Comedy Central. It was like Mario Joyner was on like every 20 minutes, whether it was like some stand-up clip or something he was in. Mario Joyner was everywhere. I hope Mario Joyner is doing well. Hawaii Joe continues and says, I was reminded of it when you mentioned movies that are hard to find while discussing DVD ripping. I wanted to see it a few years back and it wasn't on any streaming services. I couldn't even find a pirated copy, so I paid for it on Google Play using whatever credit I had earned from that Google Opinion Rewards app. Good times. All right. Nice work, Joe. With your legit copy of Hanging with the Homeboys. Yeah, I don't. It's like what? It's like it's four guys just hanging out, right? I think that whole movie is just like four guys hanging out and learning about each other's culture or whatever along the way. That's how that goes, right? Alex in Oregon writes in and asks, are there any cheap retro games left? I was recently pricing some Neo Geo Pocket Color games and found out that basically everything has seemingly jumped in price extraordinarily in the last few years. Are there any bastions of affordable retro games left, or should you just go to flashcards and FPGAs if you actually want to play and not speculate? Well, look, when it comes to are you going to play legit copies of games or illegit copies of games, I am not going to recommend one or the other. That is a choice for you to make on account of the law. But you do you, Holmes. I do not have much reverence for physical copies of video games anymore. As someone who has 4,600 of them or something here on the premises, as I think about the games I want to get rid of, for me, it is games that are very easily played and in different ways. For games that I can also have on an SD card, for games that I can play either on the Mister or games that emulate very well on the PC. Those are the sorts of things that I look for when it comes to, do I care about this physical copy of this game or not? There are exceptions, We were talking when I was streaming last week, when my uncle died and they cleaned out his place, they found his copy of RBI Baseball, and I kept that because him and my dad played so much RBI Baseball and I played with them that there's a meaning to that. So, games that I have like an individual, games that have a story attached to them. And also a handful of others. Like, when it comes time for me to get rid of my Super Nintendo games, which I'm probably going to do, I will keep Super Smash TV for no other reason than it's a rad game. And I love that game. And I played that game a billion times. And it would be nice to keep it around. But like, all the fucking weird bullshit that, it's like, there's just a bunch of stuff I don't need anymore. There's just a bunch of cartridges I just don't need anymore in my life. And, I'm perfectly happy playing those some other way. Like, I have a lot of SNES games in my garage, but I'm not going to go hook up a real fucking SNES. I don't want to RGB mod a real fucking SNES. I don't give a fuck about putting a cartridge into a slot and turning on a thing. It doesn't mean anything to me. So even in those cases, I'm like, fuck it. I would get a flat. Like, I would much rather, and in some cases have, get a flash cart for a platform and then use that with the real hardware if that's the only option. In a situation where, say, like Nintendo 64 games sometimes don't emulate well, that's getting better all the time. But in situations like that, am I going to keep all those carts around? I don't care. When I think about Nintendo 64 games that I would like to continue to own, I guess I would keep Ocarina and I would keep Super Mario 64, I guess. I can't think of another Nintendo 64 game that I feel enough of an attachment to that I would keep. I'm like, nah, they're whatever. They're N64 games. They don't matter. It's so, but also the pricing, it makes sense there. That's a part of it, right? Like, I'm not going to go. I bought a game 2 months ago. I don't know. There was a used game store in my area that I hadn't been to yet, and I went in there. I was like, what do they got in here? And I'm always looking for dumb shit. Not even necessarily to buy it, but I want a used game store that will fucking have crazy shit, because I've got all the fucking regular shit. I don't need, like, so I walked into that store and you start looking around and looking at everything they have, and just go like, yep, everything they have in this store, I'm going to say 95% of it will fit onto a fucking SD card, a single SD card. And, the CD-ROMs, those obviously, get into PlayStation 2 and 3 games. Those are bigger. That's going to require a couple of hard drives, but don't need any of this. So I'm always looking for just like crazy shit. And when I go into a game store, I ask them, do you see a lot of Neo Geo games around here? And the answer 10 times out of 10 is no. Is no, we do not. And I go like, you got any, I don't know, Japanese stuff? You got any, that's kind of the follow up to that. And they're like, no, nope. Like, all right. It's to be expected, because they're trying to sell stuff to people that actually buy old games. And for a lot of those people, they're people that are like wandering in off the street and going like, I want to show my kid the Mario game I grew up with. Can you sell me a fucking weird fake Nintendo and a copy of Super Mario Brothers that I can play it on? You got one of these Retrons in here, like they're in there fucking buying weird shit, or they've got a console already and they're like, you have anticipation. We used to play the shit out of that game, and so those are the people that are going into a lot of those local used video game stores, and they're not in there going like, hey, so do you have fucking Strider for the X68000? Do you have an X68? Do you have a Sharp X68000 in here that you can sell me with a working monitor? No? Like, that doesn't exist. I could go to fucking Game Dude in Hollywood and they have a lot of fucking wild shit. But I doubt they have that. Game Dude is at least going to have a Jaguar CD though. So that's why I keep threatening. I keep in the back of my mind, I'm like, I should go down there and I should buy a fucking Jaguar CD. And I could walk around with their pieces of paper and figure out what everything costs. I could just go to their website and see what it costs. I think if they keep it up to date, I don't know. But when I go into places and I'm like, do you have 3DO games? That's the only physical 3DO games I have. I bought because I was so flabbergasted that the store had any to begin with. This hole in the wall in Katati. Nice place, nice people there. And I was like, yeah, we got Demolition Man and Microcosm over there. I'm like, word, I'm buying them. Well, how much they cost? I don't care. I'm buying them. I want you to stay in business. So I'm just buying these. So I went into my local store not that long ago and walked around. The guy behind the counter was probably not as old as the Neo Geo was. And so I was asking him this stuff and he's like, oh, I've heard of it, but it's kind of before my time. I'm like, fuck. Now I feel crazy. But they did have some Lynx games, and so I bought a copy of Hard Drivin' for the Lynx for like $15. And but I was like, I don't need this. I have at least 4 copies of it on different hard drives in this very fucking room. So but it was a situation of just like, Lynx games are cool. It's not that expensive. I feel like I want to buy something here because I try not to leave game stores empty-handed, because I like that they exist. And if I can just occasionally buy something, then hey, I should, but yeah, but I'm not going to walk into these stores and they're going to be like, oh yeah, we have you need the CDI MPEG add-on card. You need the digital video, the DVC for a CDI. Yeah, we got like 5 of them over here. Like, no, they're not. Game Dude might actually. That's something I do. I need to find my CDI and dig it out and make sure it still works. And I could just buy one off eBay, but I'd rather just go get one locally if the prices are similar. But as far as like prices shooting up, like, yes, the prices have gotten fucking crazy. And it's been happening for years, not just the last few years. The last few years have been exceptionally insane. And some of that is, there are speculators in the market buying graded copies of games and everything. I don't especially think there's anything wrong with that. But people that want to fucking people that want prices to stay low on this stuff forever, I think that it's just like, that's a fantasy. This was always going to happen one way or the other. As these sources of these things start to dry up and you start to just see less of them around. But the natural way it used to happen is that it felt like it was happening by system, is you would have collectors decide to, they all get into Neo Geo games. And so you start to see the prices of Neo Geo games going up, 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 up. And I bought all my Neo Geo carts on the other side of that, which is not to say that I got them all for super cheap. Like I've said before, I paid $1,100 for a copy of Mark of the Wolves. And that's about what that game is worth now. I think it's like $1,400 or something like that. But, so as that more collectors start thinking, I should get all the Neo Geo games. Why not? You've got people in that space that have enough money to do that, for one, because Neo Geo games have been expensive forever. And then the prices on those just start to go up. But if the graded stuff, like the people freak out about and go like, oh, WATA is ruining everything. It's like, no, because the fucking people auctioning, it's like they're fucking auctioning off a copy of fucking Super Mario Brothers, dude. You already have that game. Fuck off. It doesn't matter. Let those fuckers go play in their weird fucking stock market pool. Like, they're not really fucking that much up. Like, they suck? Yeah, kinda. I don't know. But, like, also, I will fucking happily get with my the sealed games I have, the sealed games that I ended up with over the years by one way or the other. If me getting them graded helped them sell for more money, I would do it in a fucking heartbeat. Who cares? I'm selling it to some, if someone's like, I want a full set of graded sealed TurboGrafx games, like, fucking be my guest, dog. Here, give me fucking 30 grand. It's fucking crazy. So let those people be crazy. And if you want to play Magical Chase, you can still fucking play it. 1,000 different ways. Crix has your flashcards. Mister can fucking do it. Like, there's just so many different ways to do it. Like, if you really are out there saying, I want to play the games, and I care about playing the games, none of that fucking matters, man. Play the fucking games. There's so many ways to play the games. But if you're going to be the person who's like, no, it needs to be the original. No, it needs to be this. Now you're dealing with rarity. Now you're dealing with, okay, how many of these are actually out there? How many of these are for sale at a given time? And what quality do you want them in? Do you want the boxes? Do you want the instruction manuals? Like, you're playing a different game at that point. If you're like, I need the physical real thing. And that's everything. Everything is always going to be that way. The people that grew up with those games are now, 40s, 30s, 40s, and 50s in some cases. And so they're the type of fuckers that A, have a little bit more disposable income to throw around in some cases, and B, are trying to recapture whatever fucking weird nostalgia thing. That's why you see a game like Super Mario Brothers 1 going for insane amounts of money at auction. Not to say that like a sealed copy of that is not rare to a degree, but the number of games that are more rare than that is like fucking exponential at that point. It's just like so many more things that you could get into if you were only dealing with pure rarity. But Super Mario Brothers goes up because it's nostalgia, because it's like, oh, a sealed piece of this. The same way fucking Batman's first appearance in comic books goes for whatever it goes for. Action Comics #1, like the fucking Honus Wagners of the fucking world, like the baseball card, like it's all the same shit. And to me, the aspects of that make a certain amount of sense. I think it's stupid to be paying that amount of money for a game as common as Super Mario Brothers. But if someone thinks it's some fucking thing they need to put on their wall and they're like, look at this sealed copy of the first video game I ever played. I had a moment when I was recording the Jeff Gerstmann Hall of Fame episodes for Miner 2049er and Bounty Bob Strikes Back. I still have those cartridges, and so I can still play those games, but I don't have any of the stuff that came with them. And Bounty Bob Strikes Back came with this cool fold-out poster that was also the instruction manual, and I saw a picture of it, and I was like, fuck. I have that. Where is that? And I don't know where it is. It's fucking long gone. But I had a moment where I was like, those games actually mean a lot to me. When I was recording that episode, you can hear it. And I went through this process of like, I should buy fucking sealed copies of Miner and Bounty Bob Strikes Back, and I should fucking encase them in something and put them on a wall. That would be fucking cool as hell. Those boxes are fucking sick to look at. That would be great. And I was like, and then I started looking, and it's like, those games are $600, $700 or something, And it's just like, man, fuck it. Like, it'd be nice to have, but not for that amount of money. Could I afford that? I guess. I don't like spending my money that way, especially in cases where not only do I own the original cartridges already, but I've got 1,000 different ways to play those two games in this room. And there are high quality scans of that poster. It's not the same as being able to put that poster up on a wall or look at that poster and be like, oh man, look at Bounty Bob's jumping over that fucking mutant. That's so sick. But I just don't think I need it, man. I just don't think I need it. It would be very cool to have. I would love to have a sealed copy, and I do have a boxed copy of it somewhere, I thought, but I don't know, of Reactor for the Atari 2600, because the box art for Reactor for the Atari 2600 was like my soul when we were coming up with the name for Giant Bomb, the website. That was the thing I was looking at and going like, it needs something like this, some kind of like this explosion, This explosion on this box, this multicolor, cool looking fucking explosion, this rainbow crazy explosion. It should be something like this. Because I've always loved that specific box art. And so there's a case to be made of just like, well, yeah, it'd be awesome to get one of those sealed up and fucking boxed up and putting on it. But like, you know, you don't need it. There are high quality scans of those boxes online. You can look at that box and go, fuck yeah, that's a sick ass logo. I want that logo on a t-shirt. But that's probably what I should do is I should go make a fucking t-shirt with a Reactor logo on it. Honestly, it's, I was trying to name a band Reactor for a while, but yeah, it didn't happen. So yeah, if you want to play games, play games. If you want to own the physical items as they were because you need that, then you're a collector and you're doing what collectors do and expecting the prices to remain low forever as these things get older and older. Like you're just kind of living in a fantasy at that point. Like it was never going to happen that way. The last few years have accelerated in ways that seem unnatural. And so you could always see a situation where some of this crashes out a little bit or stabilizes or something. But like, generally speaking, this was something that was always going to occur. And I've been kind of okay with that. Like but also I'm not a person who's sitting there going like, I need to own every single physical Neo Geo Pocket Color game that has ever existed. Like, yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be fucking great. But there are plenty of ways to play those games. And for me, that's more than enough. And for me, like, I think you'd be better suited. Like if you feel the need for like some version of the real thing, then, you know, go RGB mod a console. Like I've done that a little bit, like this Saturn here, this Saturn here, takes, you know, like it spits out SCART. It speaks SCART and it's got a region switch in it and that's fucking cool. And, you know, but also I've got this 3DO below here that I have not done anything to. It'd be kind of cool to RGB mod a 3DO, but I'm okay. But I also bought the ODE for it so I can load all the games off an SD card. I do not have anything like that for the Saturn. I keep thinking about getting one, but I can never decide which one to get. And so I haven't. I just think there are a lot of options out there that you could consider that prevent you from getting into a space where you're bidding against speculators or you're you know, having to pay weird market prices for a lot of these games. Like, unless you absolutely have to have that, I don't think you should do it in this day and age. I don't think it's worth it with the way the prices have gone. If there are games you especially cherish that you think a physical copy of that game would really be a thing you would love to, and then, you know, hey, it's your money. But, you know, again, no one went out there and was like, baseball cards, I want to have the expensive one, but I can't because all these collectors have it. Like, I'm sure someone has said that, but that's just not realistic. That's just not the way the world works, and it never has been. So I don't know. You get all these people that are bent out of shape about this stuff. I get it to an extent, but like this was always going to happen. It was always going to end up this way one way or the other. So sitting there and going like, those scumbags at WATA. Like, yeah, sure. Are they scumbags? Maybe. Yeah, sure. But these fuckers are always going to show up one way or the other. Let's see. Cody from Roswell writes in and says, I have heard you define NES games as tapes, and it's the only time I've heard it as that. I had a Sega Master System, so I only ever heard it as carts and assumed that all games were carts. Also, were you a conquered, beat, or finished when you were done with the game as a kid? I've heard 2 people say conquered, and I've wanted to call them a boomer. We always said finished or sometimes beat. I beat that game. I think these days I say finished, but it was never conquered. It was never mastered or anything silly like that. Technically, Nintendo Entertainment System games come on game packs, not tapes or carts. But no, I don't. There were always kids in the neighborhood that would refer to them as Nintendo tapes, or just as it would call them tapes. It was more prevalent, I think, in the Atari 2600, and then on to the NES, and then it kind of stopped after that. But there were definitely some fucking people that would talk about tapes, and I just always found that so fucking funny. It was so stupid. Like, why are you calling these things fucking tapes? The cartridges, they're not fucking tapes. Especially in a case where literal tapes are sometimes used to load video games off of actual cassette tapes on computers. So, but I will occasionally call them tapes as a goof, but no, I never did actually refer to them as tapes. Avarox on the Discord says there were people who also said flipping the game. That one I've never understood. That is an arcade thing. Flipping, it's like because it's like Donkey Kong has 4 stages, and then it flips back over to the first stage. And so I think you could use it in that situation where you have gone through all the levels and it is flipped back to level 1. Or in some cases you have hit the maximum score and it flips back around to 0, but usually that would call that, no, that was like you'd roll over, right? But yeah, flipping is something that is some fucking boomer shit. Flipping I think is usually what was usually used in context of like, we flipped the board, back when they weren't sure what to call a level in a video game, you would call it a rack or a board. Rack was always the weirdest one to me. Let's see. Joe from New York writes in and says, I play a lot of Destiny 2 on PC still for some reason, and the majority of the random people I group with for strikes are Xbox players. So it'd be interesting to see how Sony handles Destiny. Wouldn't it be hilarious if Bungie makes a Destiny 3 someday and Sony makes it exclusive to PlayStation? I wouldn't put it past them to do it, and after all the shit stirring they did about Call of Duty, I kind of want to see it happen just to see what kind of backlash it gets. Yeah. I as a fellow lover of chaos, I am with you. Let's see what the fuck happens. But I guess that actually brings up a larger question about like what is the future of Destiny? Is there a Destiny 3? Does that even make sense? Like, I always felt like Destiny 2 has expanded so much, and I would love to see them get to a point someday where the entirety of Destiny 1 is contained in Destiny 2, but I think the stuff they've done with the story doesn't really make sense anymore for them to do that. You know, the way they've reworked the onboarding for Destiny 2 and everything kind of maybe makes Destiny 1 sort of pointless. I mean, I don't think they'll take crossplay away from Destiny 2 ever. That'd be silly, you know, obviously. But like, yes, if is there a future Destiny product? That's the question, right? The larger question before we even get to like what would Sony do with it is like, is there another Destiny? And if so, do they call it Destiny 3? Or do they reboot Destiny 2 and just start calling it Destiny? Like, basically, like, do they get to a point where like the technology is stale enough that they're like, we need to rework large parts of this product to modernize it, to smooth it out, to account for what we want to do with the game in the future. Like, oh, this engine is out of date. We need to do this. There's this. You know, they're just bolting stuff onto it all the time, I assume. And so do you get to a point where you're like, okay, we need to do that tech pass. We need to really overhaul the same way Fortnite just did, in the same way World of Warcraft did back in the day. Maybe they've done that multiple times by now. I don't know. But, you know,
do you do a full-on tech reset with the same game? Or do you roll out an entirely new product along the way? And do you make it free to play, or do you go back to a paid $60 model? And then at that point you get into like, are you limiting that to PlayStation, or are you rolling it out across the board to all platforms? Destiny would make sense as something that exists on all platforms and has crossplay, and I think that's what Bungie should do. But those are shots they don't necessarily call anymore, right? So we'll see, I guess. But assume they'd make a new Destiny. Do they import the existing content into it in some way? Or do they just import characters and they're like, hey, guess what? All of Destiny 2 has been vaulted. Now there's a whole new campaign. Like how do they do it? Do they vault the entire game and just and move forward, or how does it, what form does that even take? That's an interesting one. But yeah, I'm with you. It'd be funny to see Sony step in and be like, by the way, this is only happening on the PlayStation. Chris from Vancouver, Washington writes in with some interesting news. This almost seems like an ad. I don't know what. You can get a can of Red Bull at Jack in the Box now, as well as infused drinks with Red Bull in them. They are specifically advertising these to go with their tiny tacos. I do like the Jack in the Box tiny tacos. I will admit, though, I have been getting the full-size tacos more recently because they've got grease. The tiny tacos, they're too dry. That's weird that Jack in the Box will just sell you a can of Red Bull, but I guess they probably are selling it mostly for whatever weird infused drinks they're making. Is it like strawberry with Red Bull in it or something? But I don't know. That's fascinating. I mostly would I usually have Jack in the Box in the evening / nighttime when it would not be a good time to have a Red Bull anymore. And also I don't like I don't really like drinking energy drinks with food. I like drinking them separately on their own. I'm the same way about alcohol. I don't really like having beer with food. When I'm drinking, I'm drinking. You got some snacks, some pretzels or whatever around, sure. But the idea of sitting down to dinner and then being like, get me a cocktail or get me a beer. Like the taste of beer with the taste of food, not into it. It's a preference thing. Like I have done it. I'm sure I will do it again, but it is not something. I think the taste of beer ends up ruining the taste of the food. Maybe I just don't like the taste of beer enough to make this work, but yeah. Let's take one or two more. David writes in and says, I don't know who else to tell this to, so I'm telling you. I was just browsing my old purchases on the App Store, reliving the good old days of phone games, and came across Goddess. That's Godus, the Peter Molyneux game. To my surprise, it was still live on the App Store and has actually been getting regular updates over the past year, the last of which was just 3 weeks ago. I'm amazed that 22 cans were even still going, let alone reappearing on a dormant app to start updating again. Will we have to go back to Peter's Curiosity Cube again? Was that the last time the world was good? Yeah. Back when stuff meant stuff. On the Curiosity Cube, back when we were all tapping a cube, those innocent days. Nowadays, you're tapping a cube, that's a TikTok filter. Tap the cube and it's going to tell you what your 2023 is going to be like. Oh, you're going to die of dysentery. Congratulations. Ben in Boston with the eternal question. All these recent studio acquisitions have people talking about dormant IPs that are due for a revival. What old games would you like to see make a modern comeback? I don't know, man. All of them, none of them. It's there's a part of me that's just like, fuck it, man. Let's have new stuff. Let's come up with new stuff. Let's have new IP. Let's have new properties, new characters, new styles, new modes of play. But there's and I think the thing I would like more is to have better access to old games. I think better, the Atari 50 collection is a great example of this, but I think, more interesting access to older games I think would be cool. Hustle Bones on Discord says bring back Future Cop LAPD. Just play Dota 2. It's the same thing. Yeah, Twinson's Little Big Adventure. Sure, why not? But like, a lot of those things, if you remade them in this day and age, I think so many games are a product of the technology that drove them, and so many of them can be so specific to a time or place that I think you end up in situations where it's games in genres that you don't really see much of anymore that you think could still work in this day and age. And so in some weird way, Future Cop LAPD actually, I think, is not the worst idea in the world, because I think that's a style of gameplay, that style of multiplayer. You could make one of those today, and I think have it be successful in a modern context. I don't think you make it a game about future cops in LA. You get like a picture of Daryl Gates with like a cyber shit, I don't know. But yeah, it's really like, okay, let's play this. Like, let's play this out. Like, what? Okay, I would think it would be really funny if they made a new Mr. Do game. But what the fuck would that be? What would that even be? How do you honor the style and the legacy of Mr. Do in a modern game? And so you end up in a situation where it's like, you end up with games from the early 3D era where the 3D maybe held them back. And you're like, man, with today's technology, these concepts could maybe be given more life. Let's do Return Fire as a battle royale game. Just 100 different vehicles out there doing whatever it is you would do in a Return Fire battle royale game. Return Fire 2 is like that. Yeah. Do you do Twisted Metal as a battle royale? You could. Does anyone actually want that? I don't think so. But at the same time, that H1Z1 cars only mode was sort of fun. So maybe. But yeah, you could. There's Lost games I would love to see. What happened to that Mr. Do Laserdisc game? Did it ever get made in any, did development ever start on the Mr. Do Laserdisc game? Or yeah, sure, Psycho said Mr. Do Championship Edition. I think the way Namco handled those Pac-Man re-releases was exquisite. They did not a great job with a Galaga. But sure, do a fucking Mappy Championship Edition where you're sending out gigantic microwaves and catching all the fucking cats and shit. And there's a lot of cool stuff you could do by taking those mechanics and ramping them up, but still kind of staying true to the original arcade game. So I think at that point you could do like, yeah, okay, let's make a new Centipede. Let's make a new Missile Command. Like, you could do any number of those types of reboots, but like, that's not really, I think, what we're talking about here. We're talking about a modern comeback. So at that point, I think modern gaming is so dependent on story and world build, so you could take all that, like, yes, okay, sure, you could take Missile Command and you could inject a fucking bunch of characters and story into it, but what the fuck is that? That's a bunch of dumb bullshit. That would not be great. And so I think by doing that, you end up being limited in a way to games that have enough elements that are recognizable as modern elements, whether that's like, okay, we got a character, we got a story. So like, you could do a new Pitfall game. I don't think they should, because I think that all the new Pitfall games they did past Pitfall 2 were fucking terrible. They tried to do that. They're like, what would a polygonal Pitfall game look like? They did that multiple times. And no. So instead it becomes like games that still are recognizable as modern games that you have not seen an installment in a while, that you're like, man, with today's technology, I bet they could do something really awesome with Tenchu. But like, Sekiro kind of does enough of that, but like Tenchu was a really good go-to for a long time. Or like, man, they really should make another one of those. And they still probably should, because Sekiro, I don't think, really scratches the exact same itch. So, but I think you're kind of, if you want to be realistic about it in terms of like, what could you really do? What old games have enough bones to them that you could pick up on what's already there in a really good way, without having to inject a ton of your own stuff, the way you would if you went further back than that. The way you would if you're like, okay, well, what's a modern day fucking Grobda look like? Like 80s arcade games, I think, are really terrible for that. Like, oh, we're making a modern day Q*bert. Like, all right, what are you doing? We're making Q*bert again, but with polygons. And you're like, okay. Sure, I guess. They did that already multiple times, but why not? Yes, and yes, that's, see, people talked about it. Yes, Sekiro did start as a Tenchu game at one point. That was something that right up until they said the word Sekiro on stage at E3, I think some of us were like, oh, this is that Tenchu game. And then they said that. I was like, oh, are they not? Oh, okay. Huh. But, yeah. So yeah, I think you end up in a situation where you're just like, okay, what's an old game, but not that old that you could, it's recognizable. Otherwise you end up doing, and I think it's still fun, and it's a fun experiment and fun exercise to really change genres and go different directions and stuff. So yeah, like this Perfect Dark game, when it comes out, is it just going to be a first person shooter? I hope not. Because if it's just like, hey, here's another GoldenEye style first person shooter, I don't care enough about that for that. Like that game in my mind is a third person, totally different kind of thing. And I believe they've said as much, but the idea of just like, we're making a faithful remake of Perfect Dark, like, who cares? Perfect Dark 0 should show that that's not a fucking path. But so, I'm going to say you could have taken Syndicate and made a modern day kind of strategy game, a modern day kind of real time strategy game in the style of original Syndicate. You could do that. You still could do that. And I would love for them to do that. I would love for them to make a new kind of genuine redo of Syndicate. Yeah, Satellite Rain tried to do that. And so maybe that's not a thing you can do, right? Is maybe Satellite Rain tried that, and now we've seen that, like, maybe that's not, maybe we can't go home again on that. But also, they remade Syndicate as a first-person shooter. Remade is a bad word here, but like, they took the Syndicate IP and applied it to a first-person shooter. And it's fucking awesome. That game's fucking great. And why did they do it? Because Starbreeze makes fucking great first-person shooters. And they did at the time anyway. I mean, the way the gun moves in Syndicate, and all the way back to fucking, I guess I would say fucking Riddick, right? Chronicles of fucking Riddick. There's just a reality of the way the gun is in the environment that games didn't fucking do then. And Syndicate is fucking cool as shit. And people were so unhappy about it because they were like, I can't believe EA's taken this game I loved and turned it into a first-person shooter. They're ruining blah, blah. But like, it's an awesome fucking game. Like, I agree to a certain extent that saddling it with the Syndicate name, especially directly calling it just Syndicate and not like Syndicate : whatever, is, creates weird expectations and makes people angry or whatever. And that game's ties to actual Syndicate are almost like Easter eggs. Like, the multiplayer levels are named after some of the levels in the campaign in original Syndicate, which is like a fun, neat touch. It's cool. But like, to me, Syndicate is fucking Miles Kilo running with a pistol, holding it fucking sideways, doing fucking sick ass pistol runs. And then you are making people shoot themselves or hit themselves with grenades or whatever. And then the cool multiplayer that is like, I would call it like Left 4 Dead-esque in that it's co-op. And, you have these abilities that you're using to either hack doors or restore your squad's health, or, you can disarm grenades as they're being thrown at you if you look up at them and hit the right button. There's just a ton of fucking cool things happening in that game. That as someone who went back and played Syndicate on the Xbox a couple of weeks ago, loaded it up and got into a multiplayer. Not a lot of people playing, not a lot of people out there matchmaking for Syndicate matches, unfortunately. But I'm high level enough in that game that if I practiced enough and got good at it again, I could probably play most of those multiplayer levels solo. That game is good. That game is fucking good as hell. Syndicate is a awesome fucking video game. And the original Syndicate, also an awesome video game. But like, I don't know that I can sit there and go like, oh, they need to do more of that. Because again, people got so fucking pissed, and it's not like that, it's not like that Syndicate reboot fucking burned up the charts or anything. I fucking love it. And I know a handful of other fucking right-minded individuals that are with me. And I would have loved to have seen another one. God, with the way technology has gone since the Xbox 360, I would love to see one of those at fucking 4K and just some additional cool fucking. Yeah, I think it would be very cool to see another Syndicate game in that vein. But also, I would love to see someone try to take a stab at finding a way to make original old Syndicate work too, because that game was great in its day. You'd get that massive civilians walking around with you, and then the gunfight would fucking start, and all the civilians would just get fucking mowed down to fucking bullet shields. You're just like, fuck it. We're these trench coat dudes, and we're gunning these fuckers down. Fuck everybody. It was, oh man, it's good. It's so good. It's so fucking good. Yeah. So I don't know. There's a lot of stuff, and yeah, some of the people at Syndicate on that Syndicate game that did those games for Starbreeze ended up going and starting Machine Games. And so the Wolfenstein games have elements of that in them. Wolfenstein's got that dog in them. Just a little bit in terms of just the gun handling and how all that stuff looks and moves. It's so much more than so many other first-person shooters do. They were so onto something with that, and I think they've done. It's like those games have a little bit less of it as time goes on. When you look at Riddick, maybe it's just a little less impressive because more developers have started being a bit better about how they handle a gun in those environments. But yeah, I think as the Wolfenstein games come out, it's just like this is still doing that, but it's not as cool as maybe it was in Riddick or in Syndicate. And this is one other game that I feel like I'm forgetting here, but anyway. Yeah. It's it's a hard question to answer, because I think that there's just, it's hard to go back to old IPs and modernize them in ways that I think will please the existing audience for as much as they matter or don't matter, while also attracting a new one. And so in a lot of cases, you're just not making anyone happy with that, right? Like it's, I look at Syndicate and go, this is an awesome game. I would have loved it even if it was called something else and they made a first-person shooter. Like, did it attract more people by being called Syndicate? And if so, how many of those people were then angry because it was a first-person shooter and not a strategy game? Like, did the IP help in that case? And I don't know. They keep doing it, so it must help in some cases because they're trying to build awareness. And if they already have some built-in awareness, then that's why we keep remaking and rebooting everything over and over again instead of making new shit, right? I don't know. David from Indiana, last question. Why is the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater series so goddamn good? I can confidently say I've played through a Tony Hawk game every year since the first release. Why has no other game been able to replicate the feeling I get from this series? Do you think there will ever come a time when a game attempts to match what this series has accomplished, or has the ship sailed for more arcade-style skateboarding games? I think the Tony Hawk games at their best are games that help inspire that kind of flow state, that help kind of, that game has goals. That game and Echo the Dolphin, you can just fuck around and have an awesome time. You can just go into those levels with no goals at all and no timer and still just fucking skate. And every part of it still feels great. Even if you're not making progress or advancing a story or unlocking the next level or whatever it is. The feel of those games, the combo system, the way that combo system evolved and became more complete over time, I think helps create a real sweet spot in the middle there where they were really on it, where they were making something very special. I think that the maps, the levels in that game are built with those combos and trick systems in mind, obviously. And so you've got impeccable level design built around this very specific system of movement and combos and tricks. And those things, when they come together, there's just nothing like it. And there are other skateboarding games that are awesome. I love the skate games, for example, Skate 1, 2, and 3, but they're a very different thing because it's not, here's this enclosed environment that we built for skating. It's like, we tried to build a city. We tried to make it at least look mostly realistic, even though there's going to be some areas that you look at and go, oh, clearly they intend for us to skate here. And that's, as Tony Hawk levels became bigger and bigger, I think they started to get away from that. When they decided you could get off the board, it allowed them to think about levels differently, and it made levels less cohesive, if that makes sense, because suddenly they're like, well, you can just get off the board and caveman over there and then jump onto this stuff. Whereas before, you're like, no, this stuff kind of all has to be close together in a way that makes it all make sense. And that makes it very expressive. Those restrictions, I think, end up leading to greater player expression. And so you feel some agency in that game, even though for the most part it's like, hey, complete these goals and move to the next level, and the goals are not that hard to complete. I think you feel like you've got that you can express yourself in that game. I think people that play at a very high level, they have mastered all that in a way that they think about it a lot differently, in a way that to me always seemed way less fun. Whereas like in that middle ground, I'm still kind of trying shit out. I'm still fucking around. I'm still like, I missed it. Whatever. But I'm still dialing in lines. I'm still doing this and that, and still having a really good time with it. And I think that is why. Echo the Dolphin is somewhat similar in a way, because it had a needless, like you could flip up out of the water and flip around and do kind of flips, and that never really felt like it had a purpose in game. And I don't like Echo the Dolphin when you play it as the way, as when you're advancing the story and actually playing Echo the Dolphin to complete Echo the Dolphin. I think it's bad. I don't think it's a very good game at all. It's unique. You look at it like, this is fucking nuts. You people are crazy thinking that this was going to be a thing. But even just starting that game and jumping out of the water and flipping around, it's very limited by comparison to Tony Hawk. I mean, let's not be stupid, but like, there's a similarity there in terms of just like, it is very fun to just move in that game when you're doing all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I don't know. That's where the connection is in place. And that's why I think, the Tony Hawk games, as they got to like American Wasteland and Project 8 and some of that stuff, they started to lose their way because the additions to the trick system felt less meaningful. When you're like, oh, I can go in slow motion and I can flip the board all kinds of ways. Like, that's neat. But before, it felt like they were completing a trick system. They were like, it's missing this. We can't link this to this. And so you need to be able to manual, because then you can get from here to here. Oh, you need to be able to do a vert trick and then land and still keep your combo going. What can we do to keep that going? We need reverts. Okay, we need to be able to transfer over something so we can keep going in this direction in a more automated way instead of just like going back and forth. Okay, we need spine transfers. Okay, we can do that. And so like those elements of the trick system, and I'd say like the wall plant, sticker slap, give you more tools to express yourself, more tools to extend weird combos and try things out. And when you're kind of in the zone in that, there's really nothing like it. I need to check. I saw John mentioned that I've seen reports that the online servers for Tony Hawk 1 and 2 have not worked for months. And I want to check that out and see what the hell's going on, if that's the case. If that's on all platforms or just some of them, or what the heck's going on. But that'd be unfortunate, because that multiplayer is pretty solid. Not that a ton of people are playing it these days, I'm sure, because again, it's been offline for months and I'm just now hearing about it. But yeah, that would be shitty. Anyway, that's going to do it for the podcast. Thanks everybody for hanging out. If you're watching live, if you're not watching live, thanks for hanging out wherever you are. And enjoying the broadcast. You can, hey, we are doing Game of the Year voting on Patreon. I have worked with the advisory panel to put together some categories. We've got around 10. The first one has been posted. The first one is Old Game of the Year. Hop on Patreon, and you can comment and leave a game. Vote for your Old Game of the Year. I'll be posting the additional categories there to let everyone vote on those. I don't want to post them all at once and just like have people get a bunch of emails like your Patreon's been updated. It's like I don't want to flood people with that stuff. But we'll get all the categories up there, and people can do all that stuff. And and then I've got my picks for overall Game of the Year, and I'll probably also have picks for these categories that we've all decided on. And we'll talk about that. And probably, I'm going to say probably not next week, but maybe the week after that, the podcast after that, it'll probably make a lot of sense to do that. We'll probably have all the voting out of the way, and we'll have picked winners and all that stuff. We'll get it to you in January, one way or the other. I think it's the 10th already. Also, again, new Hall of Fame coming up here pretty soon. And there was a new Game Boys to Men up there last week talking about Nintendo. Some truly fucking unhinged behavior from Nintendo executives is documented on that show. That it was very funny to revisit. I had forgotten about some of that stuff that Glenn went through. So go check that out as well. There's still one archive that I have to upload to YouTube of one of the streams from last week, but then we'll be all caught up. And that's it. Thanks everybody for hanging out. This is me, the Jeff Gerstmann Show, hosted by me. It is no longer raining. I'm going to go get a shop vac and try to vacuum away some of the water that is sitting against the side of my house. That seems like a smart thing to do. Seems like something I maybe should have done last night. I don't know. But it was raining. So what are you going to do? Everybody take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. Be back on Wednesday, Friday. Do some video gaming. Hey, anybody in the Discord, do you guys own the Xbox 360 copy of Syndicate? Asking for a friend. I don't know. We should do that at some point. That might be fun. I'm going to get going. Have a good one. And we'll be back next week with the podcast. And some streams on Wednesday and Friday. See ya.